The Click R3 podcast is brought to you by the awesome community over on Patreon. To learn more about supporting the show, head over to spawncastnetwork.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3 number 9. Got a lot going on today. And for that, because we have things like Dragon Ball happening, a lot of PlayStation news, I had to bring in a special guest. We had a guest last time, and people were really excited for it. So I said, let's keep this going with some of the guests here. And because it's Dragon Ball week, had to bring in Nanogenics. Tyler, aka Nanogenics. Nano, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having me. How are y'all?
Good. I keep thinking about the weird crossovers that people aren't expecting. We had Colin on. Well, people may have expected Colin or already last time.
I don't think there's anything weird about that, John.
Yeah. But having Nano on, some people may not realize completely why you're obviously known as the Dragon Ball person on YouTube. You do a lot of PlayStation stuff as well. You're a big PlayStation fan.
I do like a lot of PlayStation stuff. Yes. You can't see it in this shot, but I have one of the original PlayStation signs over there that, I think a lot of people started selling them off now, but they're the ones like the box lights. And then a few years ago, I added a PlayStation 2 one over here. But you can see the import Vita right there. And then my OG PSP that's almost 20 years old
Vita's
now.
Right there. Right.
Yeah,
that's the orange one.
Yeah. I actually have all the colors, but the orange one pops the most, so that's the one I display back there. And then Nate. So
between the three of us, we might be holding up half that Vita install size at this rate. You have all the colors.
Oh Jesus, John! Don't get me started.
I mean, hey. So yeah,
I got like 3 of them right here.
I was just looking at that. Yeah.
See, look at that. Good stuff. Yeah, you did a video on the PlayStation Tech on your tech channel where you got like a PlayStation sound bar and all kinds of randomness happening. So
yeah, I cut a bit in that I set out, but there was a point where I picked up that sound bar that they released like 14, 15, so it was 2010, I think, or something like that. And I pointed to the PlayStation symbol and I said, if you put this on something, I'll probably buy it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut that. I don't know why, but I was like, we cut that in post. I was like, I don't want it to sound too shilly right now. I mean, I'm not obviously being paid to make this video, and it is a PlayStation setup, but I was like, I'll take that off for this video specifically. Just, I don't know. But yes, I have I bought a Frankenstein PS3. So I have that one sitting right here on my desk. I was capturing from it the other day. So
very good. That I can respect. You've passed the PlayStation audit.
Cool.
Okay, good stuff. Question becomes, are you dedicated enough to go into a Taco Bell with the portal?
Jesus Christ, John.
See, right.
I have not taken it anywhere public. I did try recording a video and never released it, but I took it to a bunch of different places and tested it out. But I did not take it in a Taco Bell.
Had the idea, Ryan. See,
I
bet you he went inside. I bet he went in with it though. He went in with it. He went in the store.
That's fine. I was only looking to see if it would actually connect. Then I moved on to a different parking lot.
Well, Nano tells all about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I played some of it, but he's like deep into Sparking Zero right now, so you can let us know. And we also had like Dragon Ball Daima is hitting right now. Man, it's good to be a Dragon Ball fan right now.
It is, dude. We're in a smidge of a drought there for a while. Some people like to say we weren't, but it was a little bit of a drought for sure. Especially when at least when you're covering it on like almost a daily basis, you start to sort of realize like, oh man, it's been a minute since we've had something like official Dragon Ball. So the Sparking Zero is like the penultimate Dragon Ball game that could have possibly came out. So yeah, we're definitely eating good right now.
People hype for it. Sales are good. Good Steam concurrent count on it. It's good stuff over there. Also, we do have Ryan with us, of course, co-host.
Yeah, this is true.
Good to have you here, Ryan.
Thanks.
I do want to give a shout out to the audience from last podcast. Ryan, we had like our best show ever in terms of viewers and comments and everything. So shout out to everyone who came out for that show. Number 8.
Yeah,
missed it. It's up there. Yeah. People seem to get a kick out of it. Colin shared some clips on Twitter and everything. So big thanks to him for the shout out there. But Ryan, why don't you kick us off? What do we got this week?
We'll just start off with some of the basic news stories first. We do have obviously the game coverage we'll get into later because I'm very curious to hear about Sparking Zero since, at least for me personally, I've not played a DBZ game in quite a while. If only a byproduct of time. I missed like Kakarot and Jesus.
Oh, Really?
I missed a lot of them. I've got them too. Like I'll always buy them, but then they just go on the shelf and I never have time to actually.
To be fair, technically, Kakarot was the last like main release. To be fair, which was coming up on almost 5 years ago. We got a game called Dragon Ball: The Breakers, but like it's more of a side release because it was built within Xenoverse's engine. So I don't personally consider it like a main release. So really, Kakarot was the last one anyway.
5 doesn't seem that bad though, in hindsight. I mean, you got to figure some PlayStation IP. I mean, me and John are on this all the time. It's like we're sitting on 6-7 years for some of these games.
Yeah.
Well, they do update these games constantly. Like I think Xenoverse 2 is probably still getting updated.
Yeah, it just earlier this year it got announced that they're doing this like future DLC where they're, Xenoverse does its own side story stuff, and we're in the middle of a 3-part DLC drop, and they've only done one. So that game still has at least a guaranteed 2 more $20 level DLC drops. So
they like their DLC.
Yeah, so that could be why it feels like there's been more, but technically Kakarot was the last like mainline Dragon Ball Z release anyway.
They do have the PlayStation 5 version now, though, Ryan, for Kakarot. So actually, now's a good time to go through it.
That's what I have.
Beat it on PS4, and then launch it. Sorry, platinum it on PS4, and then launch the PS5 version, and then it's auto pop on the plat for that. Boom.
Most games do that. The problem is, like, a lot of them I started on PS4, right? And then like I just never like finished the platinum. Then the native PS5 version came out, and you can't go backwards, right? So it's like I have to finish them on PS4. I now have to play the inferior version, platinum it all the way through to then you can't. They don't go backwards. You can't.
Just
if you
play
start
the
file. Oh, John, don't
even make me get the Dio Field screenshot. Don't make me do it.
Let's not just
still
say,
missing the trophy.
Let's not just say heinous shit. I'm not going to just launch the PS5 version and not auto pop a platinum. Nano knows what's going on here. I respect it. That's how you do it.
I was so sad when I accidentally, because I was trying to get a video out on it really fast, and I was like, wait, I never platinum Kakarot. And as soon as I do, it starts popping all these trophies. And I'm like, no, that was such an easy platinum, dude. No, it was so sad.
So I did that with Tsushima, where I never finished the platinum on PS4. I said, fuck it. I did a John here, basically. I transferred my file over and only auto popped like maybe 20% into like the base game. Then I finished it on PS5. But now I got to, John, now I got to go back to the PS4 version.
Do you?
I mean, it's ridiculous. All right. Anyway, why don't we do some news stories real quick?
What were we talking about? Okay, go ahead.
Let's talk about the PlayStation Plus lineup. We have Extra and Premium going live on October 15th, which is today. So the lineup's already out. That is Dead Island 2 on PS Plus Extra. We got 2 Points Campus, The Dark Pictures Anthology, The Devil in Me, Gris, Return to Monkey Island, Ghostbusters Spirit Unleashed, Firefighting Simulator, The Squad, Overpass 2, Tour de France 2023, and Ghost Recon Wildlands. Gris, of course, we have Neva coming up very soon, which from the same studio. So excited for that game. Going into Premium, though, 4 titles, which seems like the benchmark, usually 3 or 4 games. The Last Clockwinder on PSVR 2. Dino Crisis PS1. Little interesting side note here. That game is locked behind Premium. You cannot buy it a la carte, which seems to be an ongoing thing with Capcom titles in particular. I know RE1 Director's Cut is still locked behind Premium. You cannot like buy that game, which is a little bit weird. Siren. So as we were suspecting and discussing during the last show, that is basically just the same game, new emulator on implicit conversion, syrup emulation engine. What is noteworthy is that they gave it a bigger trophy list, because the original game, when they launched that during the 2016 program on PS4, only had like, I think it was like 12 something trophies. It was very short, very brief. So it did get a bigger trophy list. And then we have R-Type Dimensions EX on PS4. That's one of those PS3 to PS4 remasters. That's why it falls under Premium so far. Now, on the flip side, before we talk more about this, we have games leaving the service as well. So we now know that there are 18 games that are going to exit on November 18th. That is a pretty lengthy list. I will just jot down a few here. GTA San Andreas Definitive Edition alongside Red Dead Redemption 2. A lot of the Rockstar stuff typically is like 6 months on any sort of subscription. So they're already going back out. You've got Dragon's Dogma leaving, Mobile Suit Gundam, Superliminal, Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series is leaving as well. You've got multiple Kingdom Hearts titles, 1.5, 2.5 Remix, HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, Kingdom Hearts 3. Pretty much all of them are they're gone. If you want to play Kingdom Hearts,
it kind of feels like there's a month where the games leaving kind of even out or overshadow the games coming in almost.
Well, recently it's been like that, I'll tell you, because I've been following this library very closely. The past 2 years when they relaunched the service, more was going in than what was going out. So conceivably they were going to get up to like 1,000 plus library. I think they did touch over 1,000 at one point. Now this like sort of back half that we're seeing for like the PlayStation 5 cycle, more is leaving, and a lot of like sort of well-known properties all exiting at the same time, and we're not really seeing some sort of replace what's exiting. You know what I mean? Which is noteworthy because if you remember from like, I think this was either the Insomniac breach or I think it was the FTC case. I think it might have been from the FTC with Microsoft where we had some slides from Sony as well, since they provided some things for that entire ordeal. But there was documents about PlayStation. I think it was the Insomniac breach now that I think about it, but the sort of issue Sony was having with PS Plus Premium and Extra, and how, you know, a lot of the contracts that they're trying to secure is just getting a lot more costly and expensive. And it's kind of a well-known thing. Like we heard this back during GDC this year, or I think it was 2023, where like a lot of subscription money is drying up basically between Sony and Microsoft. They're not handing out deals like they used to during like, you know, early 2020. So it's pretty fascinating where premium and extra are going nowadays, but not sure where you guys sit on this one. I know for you, John, this is kind of, well, I don't know. I guess you can just take it from here.
Did you note that Dino Crisis does not appear to have any trophy support?
Yeah, that with RE2. I mean, I'm not sure if that is a Capcom thing in particular, because they are going back to a lot of third-party titles. That was always like the big thing, is they weren't touching third-party games. Now they are. So I don't know what the deal is with Capcom, you know?
It seems weird because Dino Crisis not being sold a la carte would only hurt Capcom. Whereas keeping it in just the subscription service would help Sony in some way. I don't know if people are like running to PlayStation Plus Premium because of Dino Crisis, but there's probably some excitement out there from people about it. Well, seems strange that Capcom wouldn't want to sell it.
Is it like, that's what I'm curious. Is it a Capcom thing or a Sony thing?
Yeah.
Because it is beneficial to Sony, but at the same time, like paywalling, you know, RE Director Cut and Dino Crisis, I don't really think is going to be securing premium subscriptions, you know?
Yeah, that whole thing seems weird. That's a shame too, because I feel like Dino Crisis is getting kind of like the bare minimum effort on that. But that should be a game people should be real excited about. And it's a lot of like, this is cool, but Dino Crisis here, but and it's I don't know, it's kind of strange. I feel like there are people who should be trying this game that probably won't be able to now, whether it's because they don't want to sign up for premium or there's no trophies. So there are some people who are like, I'll wait for the trophies. That's it. So we want Dino Crisis to come back, or a lot of people do. And unfortunately, it just doesn't feel like Capcom or Sony are very excited about this. This should be a release they should be like real excited about and show it off, and they're not. So I actually downloaded it. Haven't played it yet though, unfortunately. I was curious how it would look through the emulation layer.
Yeah,
but it was like 1.5 gigabytes, I think. So it wasn't like outrageous or anything in terms of file size.
Haven't had a chance to jump into it. I do know too, like these games for the third-party stuff, it's like, I think it's not a guarantee, but if you buy it on PlayStation 3, I mean, most of the first-party stuff you are grandfathered in. They'll honor the original license on PlayStation 3. Dino Crisis, I'm not sure if that would go over. I think that was not the case.
People were commenting on this, then saying that the cross-buy thing didn't work here either. It seems very straight. What a weird release, because it feels like they've had this ready for a while. It leaked out on a banner at one point.
Yeah, 2 years ago. So they sat on it for that long.
Yeah, it seems strange to me, which is unfortunate because now people can be excited when they show the girl in another trailer. It's Exoprimal 2.
Okay, I wanted to chime in and go, what was that game that at first it felt like they were bringing Dino Crisis back, but then it wasn't that? And it was Exoprimal. That's what it was. Okay.
Everyone got trolled. And then
just dinosaurs shooting, red-haired lady. It's not Dino Crisis.
Nope. And then I beat the game for some reason.
Oh, you finished it?
Oh yeah, I played all the way through Exoprimal. Oh yeah. Me,
you,
MVG, Nate, Sean. We actually did 4 players on it. We rolled all the way through it. It was like 8 hours long. You know, it's weird. Sometimes we beat some bad games. I don't know why. Like we beat Redfall together.
Oh, you beat Redfall. Well, that's not long, is it? Redfall's pretty short.
We got to the point where we're popping achievements and it was like 0.5% unlock this thing. We're 2 hours into the game. Why is that?
I wanted Redfall to be good so bad, man.
The vibe looked cool.
Yeah, I mean, when it was first announced, I was super tapped in because like arcane, vampires, like sure. And then I played it for like 30 minutes and I was like,
that makes sense to the achievements. Okay. there was a couple of cool moments in that game, but yeah, it was just so forgettable. Like I had no interest in playing any more of it after we got to the end and the credits rolled. I was like, oh, that's it. I'm good. I'm out. As it's still to this day, I go back and forth as to which game was worse for me to play through, that or Saints Row. I still go back and forth on that.
Oh, the new Saints Row.
That one was funny, at least. There's glitches and it randomly DMX is playing in the background as you're upside down on a jet ski firing at people. Yeah, that's
good
fun
stuff. DMX
Redfall
is
just boring.
All right, why don't we move on to our next story here? This came out today. Sony announces PlayStation The Concert. So they're going to be doing some live performances from God of War, The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon, and many others that reflect our 30 years of making games. Tickets go on sale tomorrow with tour dates across 2025 for the UK and Europe, and the concert will also come to the US at some point. They're not talking about specific dates or cities or anything like that, but this was not on my bingo card. PlayStation The Concert, live performances from some of these game soundtracks. I mean, cool. I mean, I've seen a lot of this for
what the conversation is online right now, Brian. Don't even play around with it. You know what it is.
It's what's funny though is that a lot of other publishers have done this. Like Square does this a lot with like Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so what is the conversation?
People are probably just complaining that why is the company doing this and not other X, Y, and Z thing that I want.
Games.
Oh man, dude. I saw this and I was like, that's pretty exciting. I didn't look too much. I've been kind of busy today, so I didn't get to look too much into what people were saying, but I don't know. I want to go hear some of these like OSTs live. That sounds awesome. I want to go see Hans, but the scheduling didn't work out. I don't know if either of you care about Hans Zimmer, but he's doing a US tour this last like month and a half, and he's got about a month left.
What I always remember about Hans Zimmer is that he did the score for Saw.
So they mentioned in the passage that they're going to also have all kinds of technology and stuff, kind of like maybe some where they have the like what's the experience you go in the theater where it's like that XD or the thing where they like will put like they'll blow air on you or do rumbling or stuff
4D?
Around you. So yeah. It's kind of sounded like they're referencing something like that, where they're gonna like, so for God of War, maybe they'll have some kind of like snow or something falling from the ceiling, stuff like that to like dress it up. So it does sound like it's a serious production, and their tours, like they have all kinds of locations named, so they're going like all around the world with this thing.
Oh, it seems like a big production. I mean, you're gonna have like Bear McCreary there, Gustav from The Last of Us. I mean, you're gonna have all these guys come out and perform. So I mean, if you appreciate music and OSTs, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Obviously, it's like a whole separate arm of Sony that's getting this thing done. So, unfortunately, this does not quite impede on video games like some people would like to think, but it's available. So, I mean, if it's
at least they weren't fighting about Ghost of Yote in the comments, so it works.
If it's coming to a city near you, John, would you go?
What do you
think? That's a no. Sounds like Nano would go.
I would go. It doesn't even have to be in a city near me, man. I'd fly for this.
Oh, fly for it. All right, that's pretty dope.
Okay, there you go. I'm not the biggest concert goer, but I would appreciate it if it was near me. Like if I was just walking past, I'd be like,
I was saying like cool. you're driving by like on the interstate or something, you know, and you're just like, that's God of War. Yeah. That's cool.
Pretty cool.
The bare minimum. Drives through an overpass and sees a billboard for it.
There it is. Hey, good looking billboard. There you go.
Here's a question I have for you, John, real quick. Refurbished PS5s now available on PS Direct. CFI 1000 series, $350 for a digital machine, $400 for disc. We talked before about how the listing went up. The consoles weren't being sold. Now they're out there. Did you get one? I'd love to see you tear one of these things down.
I did. I put a picture up on Twitter X. I got it. I think I'm going to cover it this weekend coming up. I haven't even opened the box yet. Yeah, so I will do that. I got the disc-based version because you reminded me of this, the digital one. It's not the one where you can put the disc on it. Like it's the old. So you know what the thing is I'm the most curious about? I haven't opened it yet. I'm curious what kind of stand they're giving me with it.
Probably the correct stand.
I kind of feel like that stand, man, that's a sticking point for them. That old stand, I'm telling you. If it's in there, I'll actually be kind of surprised.
Why do you say that?
Why would they not give you the stand?
I just, for some reason, I got this feeling. One, because I looked around the outside of the box, it does not mention the stand at all. And two, every time I hear about this thing, it's like no stand included, no stand included.
Yeah, for the new model.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I'm curious if they made a new stand or something for this one.
I think you would just get the stand the console comes with.
Hey, that seems like a $50 value at this point for them to give me a stand.
Dude, that old stand is not good either. So I wouldn't. Surely you just got the old stand, right?
I see.
Yeah,
I
looking at
like
it.
the old stand. I like for what it was because if you get the new one, did you get one of the new ones, Nano? Like the new slim, quote unquote
It's
PS5s?
so I didn't get the new Slim, but I have one of the stands here waiting for me,
Mhm.
my Pro when it gets here, but I've just not opened it yet.
Yeah, I mean so if you bought the $30 stand, like that's a legit stand. It's like heavy. It's got some weight to it. It's like metal. If you throw it around, it like makes like high quality sound if you hit it on a table or something. But if you buy a slim PS5 now, Ryan, they give you two little plastic triangles that you push on the side, and that's your
Well,
stand.
yeah, because the caveat is they give you a stand for a horizontal orientation.
Yes.
The vertical stand is a vertical only stand, which is
Yep.
why I would be absolutely baffled if your refurbished console didn't come with a stand that is twofold. It's meant to be for horizontal and vertical. If they don't give you that stand, what the hell are you going to do with that thing?
It's a nice stand.
You can't set it horizontal. It's the old one.
Transforms 2-in-1.
You're gonna have to put it upside down in your entertainment center like Herman Hulse did one
I
time
just
on
want
tour.
everyone to know that RGT stands his PS5 vertically, nothing underneath of it on his floor. So
Well, if he has
he's gotten away with that for
series,
4 years now. Everyone should be fine just standing there.
I was gonna say the OG PS5 is fine without a stand. Like
Yeah.
I've used it plenty of times without the stand. It's
I will say if it's a disc console, it's okay without the stand. Digital, it's like actually kind of top heavy because it's like slender down, then it gets bigger up top. So it is really top heavy if you don't put a stand on it. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting that thing on the floor without a stand.
Oh, should we wait? We haven't even asked Nano if he's one of the digital people.
One of the digital people.
One of the digital people.
Yeah, Nano. Do you buy your games physically?
We just had that with Colin last time where Ryan was like holding back because he's like,
No,
digital,
whoa,
all
whoa,
digital.
whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you even what are you just making shit up? It was a totally friendly conversation.
I could see it. You're gripping the desk outside of the camera.
People can do what they want. What are you talking about? What do you care? What is this revisionist history? Get out of here.
So I have both the disc and the digital version of the PS5. I just bought it because I was trying to launch this tech channel like 4 years ago when that launched. So I just bought both versions to unbox them. And I had fully embraced digital. And then about 7-8 months ago, I decided I want to buy physical games again. I actually have a stack of PS3 games I just got through buying that are sitting like right there. I bought Rain. I'd never played Rain before. I always wanted to try Rain. That was like one of the swan song final exclusives of the PS3. So anyway, and so I've been buying them digitally again. So I bought Concord, Astrobot, Until Dawn, which I don't know if I'll even open because apparently that port is not very good. And I don't know. So yeah, I've been buying them physically again. But before that, it's pretty much just exclusives. I was the only thing I would buy physically were exclusives, which also would frustrate me because when you buy the collector's edition of these things, and it's like, here's a case and here's a code. And so I'm actually thinking about buying some of them if they go on sale, so I can own them physically. So I can have like an actual disc for God of War, an actual disc for Spider-Man 2. You know what I mean? Not just for my collection before they potentially go skyrocket when the PS6 is all digital or something, and everyone's like, we gotta have all the physical stuff now and hoard it. And it's $200 to buy God of War Ragnarok in 6 years. So anyway, yeah, if you asked me that question like 7-8 months ago, I'd been like, physical. Okay. But now I'm trying to get some physical stuff again.
You came back around, Ryan. See that? You wait, you did a video on the PS5 games that are valuable for no reason, didn't you, Ryan?
I mean, I did kind of like a market analysis of like where like that console is in particular with its physical games.
Right.
It is kind of a really weird situation nowadays where some games like typically like you're waiting longer for like a physical print now versus when it launches on PSN. Sometimes generally the game's going to be like $30-$40. It's going to be through a limited print company, depending on how many prints they do for a game. Like it's going to be way more than digital. So not to say that's like a common thing, just that like there are some examples like already happening within 2 years.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting thing going on with physical if you do want to keep buying physical. Let's move on to our next story here. We have I'm not sure how closely you've been following this, John, but the PS5 Pro cover situation still not confirmed. Still not. Have you kept up with this?
People are trying to figure out if the covers work on the Pro or not, like the slim ones.
So here's the thing. So we'll run through it, right? So initially, Sony said on the PlayStation blog that you can swap out covers, quote, when they become available, which implies immediately that they'll have to sell them separately. But then all the press images, the IRL photos, and you can see, like, you can load it up into Photoshop, like, they are the same damn size, the same footprint, and that we can tell from the PS5 Pro's design, it's
Right.
like extended for, it's a bigger console. It's going to need, it's probably got a bigger motherboard and everything. It looks like it's actually thoughtfully designed to still accept the same covers. And we already know that the disk drive that they sell right now with that replacement.
I mean, didn't we
cover,
all buy disk drives for the Pro?
Yeah.
Like, we already did it, right? We already bought it, so we have a cover.
That fits. And then
Okay,
Tech Radar was the only site that got a statement from Sony saying that that Sony confirmed that the existing covers do fit. Then they took that down off that article. So now it's gone. And then we had an Amazon Japan listing of PlayStation 5 Pro. It's the real listing. And it shows an SIE like chart showing that like a product compatibility chart. Like, here's all the PS5 models we've sent out.
Get the charts involved. Okay.
Yeah, here's all the PS5 models. Here's the vertical stand. Here's the different covers we sell. And it clearly shows that the existing slim covers do not fit on the Pro. And that's an official image from SIE. So even though we've not got like we've not gotten like a statement, it just seems so bizarre that it looks like it was designed in such a manner where they should fit. Like, and that would just make sense. Like, why would you not like, you don't want to have to manufacture two different covers like you were doing with the.
Do we know if our disk drive cover fits? Do we know that?
Yes, that's
okay. That one does.
That they'll say, because that's the drive they sell right now. And
well, it has to, right? That's the only one I'm concerned about right now, is if that thing fits or not.
Well, it's important to know, right? In case, because like, this is what people are doing right now, is that they're buying a vertical stand ahead of time. They're buying a disk drive ahead of time.
Yeah.
Don't buy slim console covers right now, different colors, like the Chrome collection.
Right.
Just like, don't buy those, because we still don't actually. I mean, I guess that's confirmed, but it just seems a bit weird that the company hasn't like actually said.
Do you have any of the slim covers, Ryan? Like any of the like the ones they sold separately, like the different colored ones?
I haven't bought a new color yet, but in theory, I wouldn't have to, because I've got slim consoles, so I can.
Right, we can just pull this stuff off. I was I was thinking that's probably some of the test day one with this Pro, is to see if the covers work. Okay.
I mean, if they don't, if somebody doesn't, I mean, even during the pre-release, I mean, they're going to send some of these consoles out to publication, so you would hope somebody's mindful enough to at least confirm that for us. But I just thought that was worth mentioning. That don't buy any extra colors right now until we know for sure.
Vertical stand drive. Those are good. You need.
You're in the clear. If you're gonna mount the thing vertically, you'll still get your little free plastic feet for horizontal.
Good. You think the plastic? I still feel like they should go aluminum with it.
What for the? I think we can already see. You can actually see from the like real product images that it's the basic clear ones like the slim comes with.
I don't know. I mean, it feels weird to do that to the $700 beast, but all right, that's fine. Seems strange. I mean, mine's horizontal, so that's how it's going.
I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but it's like throughout PlayStation history, they always sell the vertical stand. Almost always. There's very few consoles where they didn't sell the vertical stand. So
did anyone have their PS4 vertically? Was that a thing?
So I never did. What's funny is that I now have it in a display cabinet, and that has the vertical stand on it, because that's how it always looked in the press materials.
Yeah, because it would face it at you, like
yeah.
With the light.
I'm gonna have to look this up now. PS4 vertical stand. Let's do this.
It's like a little triangle thing, basically. Like, most people didn't.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and they sold that just like they sold it with every other. I mean, I hate being that guy, but it's like they always sold vertical stands. This ain't new. They always sold them. I mean, who the hell was buying the vertical stand for their PlayStation 2?
My PS1. I didn't have my PS1 vertical.
Your PS1?
Yeah, no.
Oh shit. All right, let's move on to this real quick. PS5 Pro, just total games, because there's been like a running list of like confirmed titles. Like recently, Ragnarok finally got a Pro enhancement label on the PS Store, so that's good, because that game did not, for some reason, show up in the early like materials that Sony was putting out. I feel like that's kind of the game you'd want to showcase, but it took a while. But now we know that game is confirmed for a Pro enhancement, and we're now up to 67 games total with Pro enhancements, 3 of which are PSVR 2. I don't know about you. Very curious about PSVR 2 support, if only because a lot of those PSVR 2 games, right, for frame rate, like a lot of them lean on reprojection, which can like create a lot of ghosting artifacts. So I'd love to see a lot of more PSVR 2 support, especially for first party games, which we don't have right now. But there is some upside to PSVR 2.
Yeah, I still think that whole VR thing is It's tough. It's tough to put any money into that right now.
Well, if you have VR2 right now and you enjoy,
I mean, if
playing
you're
VR2
a developer or a publisher, you're like, well, yeah, obviously we have to upgrade this thing to PS5 Pro. It's like, do we? So it's nice here that some are, but I just
Do you guys
VR
like
is not a great place right now for gaming. It feels like. What was that now?
do either of you actually like play VR? Like any level of frequency?
So I
not as much.
I love VR. I think it's great. My only problem is that it's just generally have little time to play games. But whenever I get the chance, I love booting up PSVR 2.
Yeah, same. I broke my hand in VR from the Creed boxing thing. I punched the back of a Secret Labs chair because I outlined my room, and of course it didn't have PSVR 1, I think, didn't have object detection, if I'm not mistaken. Like PSVR 2 does, right? I think. Anyway, so
it'll like bring up that wall, like if you get too close to your zone.
yeah, well, I wasn't thinking, and I had my chair still in the zone, and I'm sitting there like, obviously like into it, and I punched it. I guess I just hit it like a right way, and I actually broke my right hand in VR on the back of a chair. Anyway, I love VR though, still to this day.
I love that. That's a great story.
Just don't boot it up enough.
Creed's good though. That's a fun game. I can see how you got into it because that shit really does make you like lose focus with where you are. That's excellent.
What, did you have to explain that when you're at the hospital and they're looking at your hand?
They loved that story because they said they had never been told that before, and this was 6 years ago, I think, 2018, I believe is what it was. That was at the end of 2019. Yeah, it was at the end of 2019, and she's like, I've never had anyone in here from a VR accident. She's like, you're the only one. So that she actually told the doctor when he came in my story for me because she found it that interesting. So there you go. Yeah.
So would it be safe to say you lost that match?
Oh yeah. Did you power through it?
I definitely did not power through it. I didn't think it was broke though. I was like, there's no way it's broke. I took my hand over my wife and she's like, I think it's broke. It was already starting to bruise, and I was like, oh, come on, man. I was like, no. Then I go to the doctor, and yeah, sure enough, it was broke. I was like, ah.
Who are you boxing?
Did you have to?
I don't even remember which level I was on. I never have booted that. I've never booted that game back up though. I have a whole lot. That game has never been
drama on that now. Did you have to explain it to your audience when you show up with a cast?
Yeah, I played through Kakarot came out, and I had my cast on for I think the majority of the playthrough of that game specifically, and it did make, because that game was very spammy. It had like it played kind of like a Kingdom Hearts, like it's an action RPG. It's just very like you press one button, but you have to press it a lot, and it really was kind of like frustrating trying to play with that cast on my right hand. And yeah,
you played through Kakarot with a cast. We can't get Ryan to boot the thing up, man.
Hey, at least I didn't break my wrist playing.
Yeah, be careful. The object detection on these are a lot better. I know the most recent thing, I actually haven't plugged my PSVR 2 in a long time, but I played my MetaQuest 3 the other day, and that was pretty fun. The wireless, man. I'm definitely getting Batman. Yeah, I wish it wasn't a VR title, but you know what? It's Batman. It's Arkham.
That's what everyone says about every VR game. Looks cool. I feel like this is cool looking. I wish it wasn't VR, but it's cool looking.
Metro, though, I'm pretty stoked about Metro.
Metro did look good.
Metro will get me to plug my PSVR 2 back in and play PSVR 2 on my PS5 Pro. So there you go.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good. Yeah, but anyway, we've got 67 Pro enhancements was the long and short of it. I feel like we're probably gonna have upwards of like 100, 150 by the time the year's over. So
yeah,
where does it? I'm looking in the store right now. Is it supposed to show it on there, or I'm not seeing it because I'm on because I already own the game?
So for where the enhancement label would be, or
view product. Oh, I see it. Never mind. There it is.
Yeah, it would be on like the game page for the store listing, or there is going to be a separate, and I think it's still there, a separate directory showing like just a handful of games that are going to be Pro enhanced. So, but yeah, if I remember correctly, PS4 Pro only had like a few hundred by the end of it, and we're already up to 67 before the console's even out. So I almost feel like a lot of studios are just much more in tune now with, sort of getting an enhancement out there, even if maybe it's more on the sort of whatever side. Some enhancements we're hearing so far, it's like, oh, that's all you're doing, but at least there's something. All right, this will be interesting. So Jetpack Interactive and Nixus Software, both basically they play a support role within PlayStation Studios. The story here is basically that they're going to expand further on what they were primarily doing. So, Jetpack Interactive has been working with Santa Monica for a long time on the PC versions of God of War. There are recent job listings on their site indicating that they'll continue working with them, where it says, and I quote here, Jetpack's work has received praise from critics and Sony Santa Monica alike, and our studio continues to collaborate with Sony Santa Monica and other Sony first-party and third-party developers. So implying that Jetpack in recent years has only been doing the PC ports for God of War, and also they did work on Ragnarok, the base PS5 game as well for a little bit. So it sounds like there's maybe a long-term relationship and contract that they now have to work on more games. And then as for Nexus, where we see them handling their first non-PC port, that being remastering Horizon Zero Dawn, they also had their community manager confirm on LinkedIn that more is on the way, with this being their first content project. PlayStation Studios, of course, has a handful of studios that do provide support roles, that being Nexus, Jetpack, Malaysia Studio, Valkyrie Entertainment. But at a certain point, they're going to wrap up a lot of these projects in the context of Nexus, where they've now, reached a lot of the back catalog of late lifecycle PS4 games. So there is a question of where they can go from here. Same with Jetpack, right? I mean, if I could even see Jetpack being acquired someday if they just want to stay in the support role. But there's a lot of ways this can go. I mean, my hope, and this kind of gets into a rumor later that will be right after this, if we can just segue into it. But it's I mean, there's still so many PlayStation IP in light of Astrobot coming out. It's like let's work on some of these games. Let's get them back. I mean, the problem area is always PlayStation 3. Still a lot of PlayStation 3 IP.
You already know where I'm going with it. Yep, you
Yeah.
already know.
There's a lot of
one I'm picking.
I mean, look, there's so many games I'd love to see, and realistically, for how much of a pain in the ass emulating Cell would be, and I still would hope that they're doing this in the long term for maybe PlayStation 6, but let's get some native ports going. If Nexus is doing that, if Jetpack's doing that, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's future games in the pipeline as well they could be working on, but still seems like good portfolio management. I just hope we have more games coming.
Got to get Infamous up.
I'd love to see Infamous.
That's my thought. Infamous, bring it up to PS5, PS5 Pro, and do a PC release. Just get that IP pushing, and got 3 of them they can roll with pretty easily. They could do First Light as well, package that in, or just I don't know. Do you think they would just go with like a collection of the first 2? Because Second Son already works, but they don't seem to be allergic to just grabbing a PS4 game that already works and just remastering it or remaking it even. I feel like you do a collection of the first 2 at least, do remaster treatment to them, and move it up to PS5, PS5 Pro, PC, and just see what happens with it. Because that's a series that if it was still ongoing, I think if we had a brand new one right now coming out, would probably be maybe the most visually impressive Sony game. That would work perfectly with ray tracing, higher fidelity visuals. It's just such an imaginative kind of world with like the superpowers and stuff. So
Second Son still looks good.
Yes, it does.
So they could do Festival of Blood. They could throw in that DLC pack.
Yeah, for sure.
That was a standalone, actually. Wasn't even right. I don't think it was DLC. Yep. You didn't need to have.
It's standalone. For sure. I'd be curious to see where you fall on this, Nano, because I mean, you just said you bought a bunch of PlayStation 3 games, right? So it's like, where are you at with that? How many games have you played on that system, or rather, what do you want to see going into?
I mean, PS3 is probably my favorite console, like ever. So, yeah, there's a lot of games that MotorStorm. I think MotorStorm is like
yes.
That's what
I'm talking about, baby.
That was the game I told you, Ryan. That was the game at the kiosk when I was waiting for the Wii. When we were waiting at midnight. That was the game they had on the PS3, and I was like, "This game looks crazy. This is like it's never getting any better than this." And I was sitting there looking at like a 720p image.
Dude, that game still holds up. Like MotorStorm and Monument
really
Valley.
Cool when things blow up and it goes flying. It's cool looking.
I'll never forget the first time I played that at a Target kiosk. Like that was like right before the console came out. My first time playing it, and dude, it was amazing.
And then Resistance, like I personally, Resistance 2 is my favorite. I think like a lot of the fan favorites was a lot of people I know really like 3. 3 didn't resonate with me as much. I know that Nathan Hell wasn't like the most like likable character, but something about him I still got attached to him. And so moving on from him to, I can't ever even think of what the Resistance 3's main character was, but
Nathan Capelli, I think, or something Capelli.
Capelli, you're right. It was Capelli. Was it Tim Capelli maybe?
was about to say there are not two Nathans. Something
Yeah.
Capelli.
Either way, like Resistance would be another one that I would obviously love to be able to play again. Matter of fact, when Insomniac tweets out Resistance stuff, like I'm not trying to be one of those people, but I immediately, because I've got Insomniac tagged for tweet alerts or whatever, and I immediately check and I'm like, oh, okay, it's just there, like happy 20 years, or not 20 yet, but happy 15 years or whatever. They're like, they'll just tweet something about Resistance. I'm like, where's just like I don't even need a remake, just a remaster would be fantastic. Like
that's where I'm with you. We don't have to do a lot to these games. Just make them playable to a modern audience. That's what I want. I mean, I'm fine with like a sort of quick and dirty port. Just get them running on PS4 and up. So I mean, I don't know if that's where they're going with Nexus and Jetpack, but just as a sort of jumping off point. I mean, conversationally, I would love to see them explore this, especially in light of like seeing a PS Vita game of all things being licensed out and like, hey, let's just, somebody take Freedom Wars and just do something with it. So it's like, whether it's Jetpack,
up, online
Nexus.
multiplayer back, 120 FPS.
I mean, similar conversation, but what are your guys' thoughts on the Volume 2 of Metal Gear Solid, which would clearly, hopefully, they're saying Guns of the Patriots would be in that. So
yeah,
that would be similar. Because I know that's Konami, that's not first party, but like
it's only on the PS3 right now.
It's rezzing a PS3 exclusive, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Not just a exclusive, the exclusive.
Yeah, this is true. That's the only one I played. I went into that one. I didn't know what the hell was going on most of that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You just played 4?
I have since played 1 about 30% of 1. I'm 30% of the way through 1 because I wanted to just play those before Delta came out. But yeah, I played through 4. And so like that ending sequence, which was still with me to this day, where it's just going through those, it didn't hit the same for me. So I want to play back all the way through all of them. And I know that ending sequence of 4 will probably hit so much more if I actually have the context of what was all going through. Which, when you gather a lot of it over the course of playing through that game, but obviously a lot of it is missed when you've not been
the ending when you return. Oh, it was good. It's so good. It's so well done. So I'm realizing something now. You said you play 4. You said you 30% of the first one, but 2, not yet.
No, because I want to play them. I want to play them in release order.
Ryan had to mute his mic. He might have been yelling over there. I don't know. Dude, 2.
Release order
2
is
is something special. That has a moment in time that I wish I could bring back and just show people. People wanted to kill Kojima. They wanted to put him up on the Game Awards. It was all over the place. It was crazy. It was probably one of the best marketing tactics I've ever seen, but it also made a lot of people really mad. But
I do know. Are you referring to the fact that you play as
you play as Raiden? Yeah,
you play as Raiden like most. Yeah,
play Snake the first 2 hours, and then you just go to Raiden, and that's it. And everyone, the thing was the build up for it. They didn't tell anybody. They even had reviewers like review it and talk about it, but not mention that twist. It was crazy. And then people bought it and they go through it and they're like, wait, why are we playing as this guy? Oh no, it's like an hour thing. We'll go back. Nope. You just play as him the rest of the way.
It just keeps going.
Dude, it was
keeps
crazy.
Going.
But at the same time, it was a game that was 60 FPS on the PS2 and it looked super impressive. It was such an awesome release back then. But there are some moments, people will still share them on like Twitter, where at the end of the game, you start getting messages. It is so weird how well that's aged. Still, like 20 some odd years later, some of the stuff they're saying in the game that's supposed to be like, oh, it's just it's fictional, might mimic real life, and it's like, okay, this is a little too close. So it's good though. If you've never played it, dude, go into that like completely blind, and it's an amazing experience.
Yeah. So with that, MGS4 that will eventually come.
Well,
from Konami.
Yeah. But I mean, you get Delta as well. Like we'll talk about Konami soon because I'm gonna talk about Silent Hill 2. But dude, I'm telling you, Konami, I think they might be back.
Yeah, they've been doing a hell of a lot better than they were like 5 years ago, I would say. So kind of adjacent news story here, the God of War Saga remaster rumor. Now the source on this was like pretty dubious, and a lot of people are just kind of throwing this one away. I still find it's at least a conversational topic here that allegedly there's these games that would be grouped up, God of War 1 through 3. Now 3's already got a remaster, but 1 through 3. Ascension as well, which Ascension is one of those PS3 stuck games, and the PSP titles as well. And those would be put into one package that would be sold for the upcoming 20th anniversary, since that is next year. Apparently, they also said it was Nexus. Again, the source seems very dubious. My gut reaction to this was like, I mean, if we're talking about PS1 and 2 games, like, or PSP and PS2 games, they've got a new program that they're doing with premium. Like, it seems like the sort of fast way to sort of get those games out is like what they just did with Sly Cooper. I mean, these games are not a problem to emulate. Now, Ascension, sure, I would love to see that come back. I mean, I would love to be wrong about this. It's just they haven't really done a product category like this in a while, which is these sort of collections, right? Like, John, to your point, would they really put Infamous 1 and 2 and sell them as one package? They haven't really done this since PlayStation 3 when it was a lot of PS2 games, packaged up all in one go. PS4 saw a little bit of it with, like, say, Uncharted Collection, but otherwise they've not really done collections. And I just feel like for what is primarily PS2 and PSP games, I'd be inclined to say no. Although, slight devil's caveat here, if there's one game where they would do this, like one IP, it would probably be God of War, right? God of War 1 and 2 are pretty big in light of like 2018 and Ragnarok. Yep. So
we had that Insomniac leak, right, where it showed data for PlayStation Network, and they had like the most played games, and it was through streaming the God of War collection. It's like people are going through that PS3 streaming to play these games. And if I'm Sony looking at that, I'm like, man, there might be money to be made here. Maybe instead of just giving it away in the PS2 emulation layer, maybe we do clean it up a bit and sell it for $70. But I mean, it's God of War.
70. Whoa.
Hey, we're gonna just this is funny. I was trying to think about, okay, let's say they're actually gonna do this. How would they realistically approach it? Would they actually go, you know what? Let's just put all these games, 6 games, into one package for $70?
It doesn't
Sony
seem like
be like, that's not that. We need more money.
It just, I mean, I don't want to like lay it down thick like that, but it just doesn't read to me like something they would do nowadays. I mean, honestly, the sort of bare minimum thing is like it would just show up on premium through the Syrup emulation engine, and it would be a a la carte $10, which is like 4 games. We're talking God of War 1, 2, both PSP entries. So it's like that's not a bad compromise. You're right. Like that when the Insomniac breach happened, like that, when that data came out, I was quite frankly fucking shocked that many people are streaming the God of War collections. I
was surprised too. I'm like, that's the game, really? Okay. But you know what? It's interesting. When we were doing the podcast last week, I asked Celia because her first God of War game was 2018.
Yeah,
she didn't play the other ones. I'm like, why didn't you play those ones? Well, I just, this is the one that got recommended to me, so I started it. So I'm sure there are plenty of people, because we also kind of forget that we're like old, that there are a lot of younger people coming up who have never played any of those older God of War games. I thought, I'm like, man, God of War 2 really was 2007, and we don't really think about it, but we're like, man, that was
like when you said 20 years ago for God of War 1, which I technically didn't play God of War 1 and 2 until the PS3 collection.
Sure. Yeah.
But
that's still a great way to play it.
Yeah, still, I'm just like, man, 20 years. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you guys?
I'm in my 30s. So
I'm 36.
Yeah, I'm 33.
See?
Okay.
We're old. Once you get past 30, it's all over.
That's whatever.
that question was slightly like, oh, so you guys are you in your 40s?
I just didn't know. I didn't know if we were all the same age or not. I was just curious.
I'd say we
are. Okay.
Yeah, we're still young, but like that's 20 years ago. Like that's that's not really a game you probably should be playing when you're like in your early teens or whatever. But the
2000s were a different era, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's over.
think about some of those God of War sex mini games. Like that was a wild time, So
okay, you think those stay in if they remaster, remake them?
Yeah, surely, right?
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, God of War 3 is already like again that's remastered, and that's like in the main story path. Like you have to with Aphrodite.
Oh yeah,
big spoiler, but
man, dude, it's been so long since I played those. I forgot there was 1 and 3. I just remember 3 being just like you just boss fight to boss fight is all I really remember, man. It's just boom, 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 boom.
That is one of those things where, like with 3, because that is playable today on PS5 in theory, and it's like not really. It's kind of like a Metal Gear Solid thing. Like you don't really want to necessarily jump into like 3 has a big payoff if you played 1 and 2. So like I'll say devil's advocate. Like if there's ever a situation where they're gonna pay special attention to PS2 games outside of the like classics program, it would probably be this franchise. So
it's really funny, Ryan. The remasters especially recent ones, they get a lot of pushback online, right? We saw with Horizon, obviously, with the remake or whatever for that. But even other remasters, people were like, "Do we need this really?" I brought up the God of War one in one of the videos. People were like, "Yeah, let's do it. That makes sense to me. Let's go. They get 1 and 2 and the PSP games." People seem on board with it. So again, if I'm Sony and I got that kind of research, I mean, maybe I am gonna slap that price tag on it and put it out there. And you know what? I'd buy it. So hey.
Well, I think most people. That's the only thing that's making me think like, well, I would love to be wrong. I mean, because like the bare minimum is like they just show up as a classic because they'd still sell for like $10 a la carte. So if you want all 4 of them, it's going to run you $40 if you don't subscribe to premium. And then Ascension is still kind of missing because I don't expect.
Yeah, but at that point, I'd rather them do the whole thing and make it look all nice and.
Depends on what they do. I mean,
yeah,
they're just straight up emulating PS2 games. They're going to look like PS2 games, but are they going to kind of give it like a, I don't know, like almost like a Crisis Core treatment, like where it's this weird half step between not quite a full blown remake, but it still looks really good. All right, let's move on to LBP3 being delisted.
Man.
Big news here. The official account on Twitter has put out a notice that the game and all DLC will be delisted on October 31st. So this is your last call to buy these games, or this game digitally, and any associated content, because they do clarify you will be entitled to re-downloads after the content is delisted, and that's usually the case anyway. Things get delisted pretty frequently nowadays, unfortunately, in our all digital future. But as long as you did buy it outside of fringe cases, usually you're still entitled to re-download it. I want to kick this off right away by saying a lot of people are connecting the dots here with like what happened with these games when they were taken offline prematurely. Not related. LBP1 was delisted 10 years after the game came out in 2019. LBP2 was delisted January 2021. Those are 2 PlayStation 3 games that were on the PlayStation 3 store, so I feel like people were just not really talking or cared about those games at the time. This one, I mean, I think it's easy to sort of look at like how the games were hacked and messed with and think that's what's going on here. It looks like a standard 10-year license, I would assume, for whatever sort of music's in the game. I would safely suspect it's 10 years after. Like that's what we didn't even think about that when the game was being removed from PS Plus Extra, if you remember that, John, when we covered that news story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's 10 years. So not quite related, but I guess I'll ask Nano here. I mean, LBP3, where are we sitting on this, huh? Because LittleBigPlanet, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no, I won't lie. LittleBigPlanet 3 is the one I played the least of the 3 originals. Recently beat Sackboy with my 6-year-old, and that game was actually a ton of fun. I'd hate that I stepped on that game at launch.
That's great.
And I own that physically. I was curious. Do you think it's because of all the costumes?
Well, so here's the weird thing, right? Because like LBP does have a shitload of it's like
I'm sitting there looking at it. I didn't know how much DLC this game has. This has costumes, but
it's a ton. What's weird is that they said all DLC. Now, conceivably, it doesn't have to be all DLC because sure, like there's maybe 10-year licenses for the Marvel stuff, and there's like, I don't know, Back to the Future costume. It's just a bunch of IP, but like there's PlayStation outfits. Those don't have to leave, so I almost feel like it was maybe sort of an on-off switch of like, okay, if we're going to take the game off and all these other costumes, then let's just take it all down. I don't know if I don't think that's the right decision, but maybe they don't want this weird fragmentation on the store where it's like, why are these outfits here? But where's the game? Where's the other outfits? Where's the other, you know what I mean? So I don't agree with that, but I would think that's what's going on.
This is another one that you would think that they would want to bundle these together and bring them forth somewhere, because like LittleBigPlanet 1 and especially 2, well, I say especially, but to me 2 was my favorite. I feel like 2 is where they really hit their stride. You'd think that they would want these. I know you said it's not really their like current strategy, but maybe after seeing the reception to Astrobot, they're like, maybe we should go back to more of like this PlayStation a little bit, maybe mix in modern PlayStation, but like let's go back to some of the stuff that worked before. Like not having the LittleBigPlanet stuff. I know they're delisting this one, but you bring it all back in a package where you get rid of whatever was the issue with the licensing, right? And you bring it back in a way that can exist, and you have all 3 games bundled together in like a nice, pretty shiny PS5 logo on it, and there it is.
Yeah.
I think the Sackboy character is is I guess strong in Sony's mind for that.
No, he's not, obviously, because Astrobot, right? I feel like if they thought they could trust Sackboy, then we wouldn't have Astrobot. Which to me, like, Astrobot is fine, but Sackboy, I feel like, just to me though, has so much more character, so much more personality. I don't know, just to me, just from an aesthetic standpoint. Like, if I were in a store choosing the like, I don't know, cute but might also in the world robot or the Sackboy thing, I'm choosing the Sackboy thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me. But I guess Astrobot appeals to a wide audience because that game is very beloved. So already.
Do we find out what Media Molecule is working on, or just like they're working on a different game? They didn't say like, oh, it's a new IP. It's,
I mean,
it seems like another creation tool kind of thing they're working on, I guess.
I would, well, as far as we know, it's a new game. I
was going to say, do you go, hey, you should use Sackboy in some capacity for your next game? Because Dreams was kind of faceless in the sense that it didn't have like a character or anything associated with it for branding.
No, I mean, I would expect Media Molecule is given the guideline of your next project has to be like a really marketable thing that just can, be as you say, not like Dreams where it's sort of this. I mean, Dreams felt much more like a tool than LittleBigPlanet ever did, given that LBP was in many ways a lot more playable. And I don't want to undermine that Dreams didn't have single player content; it had a ton, and there was definitely a way to play a lot of Dreams content without ever creating, but it always had that image of being a creation tool. Having said that, I'll push back on the whole Sackboy thing because we just had Sackboy. It's 4 years ago.
Well, but yeah, but it's 4 years, man.
That's not that long ago.
I mean, I want to be wrong. I would be wrong too. I just like you. So you don't think that with their current?
I just think I thought it was like at a certain point, it's like, what are we doing here, man? Like these tweets that are like going viral of Astro replacing Sackboy. Brother, we just had a Sackboy game.
Okay, I'm not being like them. I'm just saying, I feel like when you look at what they're, I don't know. Am I missing him somewhere? I don't see him as much on any, which to be fair, it has been 4 years, but I just don't see him, like their marketing. Like, I think when you go look at the main page, it's like Miles and Kratos and Aloy, which I would love to hear your guys' opinions on Horizon. Do you guys like Horizon?
Yeah, everybody brings that up. You see this, Ryan? Dude, I'm telling you.
I like Horizon. I'm just curious if you guys do.
We found another one.
I just platinumed Zero Dawn this year. I finally went back to platinum because I'm like, they're going to remaster or they're going to do something on PS5, and I want to be able to launch the PS5 version. So I platted it back in like March or April or something.
John, I'm going to replace you with Nano on this show. My God, finally.
You see this? But hold on. I like Horizon. We always try to find people who like Horizon because it's like the opposite. It seems like online. This is like the most hated popular game ever. Apparently,
that's a good. Good game.
I like Horizon. Forbidden West did take a long time. I just beat Forbidden West this year too. It took a long time to really get its like hooks in me. I don't know, like one connected. One connected with me so much faster than Forbidden West. But then once I got about 10-ish hours into Forbidden West, I was like, okay, wait. I'm hooked, and then I just played it all the way through from there. But
I liked Forbidden West actually quite a bit more than Zero Dawn. Burning Shores I thought was awesome. I think that's their best work.
I've not played Burning. I got to the end of the game and I said, okay, I'll come back later because I was like, I'd been kind of it took me a while to get through Forbidden West. I'm pretty slow at playing games, and so it took me a while to get through that. So I was like, okay, I want to do like a total genre swap here. So that's when I actually started playing Metal Gear Solid 1. So
I mean, good choice though. But the with that though, Burning Shores was only made for the PS5. They didn't make a PS4 version, so it wasn't that cross-gen thing. You kind of get a glimpse at what they can do with the PS5 with Burning Shores. Like that is probably to me the best looking open world game I've seen so far.
Yeah, that area does look ridiculous.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah. There's
better than the normal Forbidden West. Like it's actually noticeable.
Yeah, because when you fly. Yeah, when you fly to the sort of destroyed Los Angeles, like it's a very different environment, and it looks insane.
You put like photo mode on, it looks pretty crazy. From like because they have like lava and stuff on the ground. It looks pretty awesome.
I might have to boot that up. I had one of my friends here. His name's Dotadoya, and I had booted up Forbidden West on my PS5 for a second, and I just recently got a Sony OLED, finally like an actual OLED TV, and he's like. this is the best looking game he's like, wait. And I started like running around and I had, I play in performance mode and he's like, it's so smooth. Why does it look so good? He's like, that is the best looking game I've ever seen in person. And I'm like, dude, yeah, this game is crazy. So you're telling me that it looks even better when you're in, where does it take place? Where does Burning Shores take place? What'd you say?
Los Angeles.
It is. Okay. It's, that's cool. Yeah. I'm gonna have to boot that up.
Yeah, it's an incredible looking game. But having said that, LBP, yeah, it's disappointing, but I don't think there's much more to this. Like I'm still like mad at how the games got taken down prematurely, but unfortunately, the delisting thing, as far as I know, not really related. I do hope we see Sackboy again someday. Let's move on to Death Stranding 2, the special stage presentation. So we did get some new footage from, because we talked a little bit about Kojima. We do know that he's working on this monstrosity that I'm so excited for. A lot of new characters shown off. We know Fragile's back. Tarman is played by George Miller. Dollman is played by
Dollman's the best of the whole thing. Yeah.
Played by Fatih Akin. Rainey is played by Shiori Kutsuna. Tomorrow played by Elle Fanning. I fucking love these names. Heartman, again, played by Nicholas Winding Refn. We also saw the ridiculous photo mode, which I don't know about you. That photo mode footage, I'm like, these characters have no business looking this like realistic. Like,
yeah, some of the animation was pretty good.
They get over that uncanny valley of like hyper realistic video games. It's like insane how good they look. The big news coming out of that presentation is that the team does have a release date set internally. They're just not talking about it. Yep. So it's just a matter of like, hey, you'll find out next year, which is good info to know, because like that way we can say for the upcoming Game Awards, where we always think, oh, Jeff Keighley, we know he's best friends with, we're not going to get a release date there. Maybe new footage, but otherwise it looks like the game is coming along just fine.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, what Ryan just said. Jeff Keighley and Kojima, good friends. I'm bringing something up later in the show. Go on.
Okay. That's it. If you want to talk about it now.
I mean, I'm still curious. They haven't really shown. I mean, they show some of the gameplay. It looks like it's still Death Stranding, delivering packages, which is fine. But they show like you're on the moon. They show like all kinds of weather and other obstacles you're going to go through. So it does look like it's Death Stranding to the next level. But man, the creativeness from Kojima, and I mean, there's got to be some kind of substances or something involved here, because he's coming up with some crazy characters, dude. So, I think the mind at work with him has got to be incredible. Like what's going on in there.
So I've got a little quick story here. My mom, right? She's a big fan of Norman Reedus, basically just because of The Walking Dead. She just she loves Norman. She thinks he's so beautiful and so attractive, and she loves Norman Reedus, and she doesn't know a thing about video games. So I thought, hey, she knew about Death Stranding, but I was like, hey, he's doing another one. So I showed her that like 8-minute trailer, like the first like big trailer we got for the game. And she's watching it and she's like, wow, it looks so real and everything. But then, it's Death Stranding too. And it's weird and it's really bizarre. And so she's sitting there and I could just watch her slowly start to just like not understand at all what's going on. She was visibly frustrated with what she was watching. She started throwing her hands up and she's like, what the fuck is going on?
Just explain that you have to deliver packages to save humanity. Take her on the mission where you got to go up that ridiculous hill, right? But then you get to the top and you can look down on the big complex, and then they have low roar hitting in the background with the surround sound.
Yeah, she'll never understand it. Like it got to the part where
you need words for it. It's right there.
It got to the part where like the guitar was strung and it like shot out.
Okay, well, yeah. All right,
is it the guitar trailer? Because that trailer was
yeah. So when it got to that part, she threw her hands in the air like she was just like, what is happening? I was laughing so hard I couldn't believe it.
That's what you show. Like I just gave you gold and you show her the lightning guitar.
Nano, did you play the first game?
I was about to say, unfortunately, Death Stranding is one of the few gaps I have in my PS exclusive knowledge. I bought it on launch day and even bought the collector's edition that came with the
Baby in the Jar blue.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
And it still is on. I recently wrote out a list of games that I want to complete. Like I actually wrote it out on actual pencil paper, and it's on there, and it's a pretty far on the top.
I'm going to tell you now, Nano. Okay, you mentioned playing Sackboy with your kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So something I noticed with this game is it hits
Going.
way with Death Stranding. It hits way different if you have kids.
Oh, okay. I somehow
Way
thought.
different.
I think Ryan and I were on the same page because I somehow thought that like you're about to say
No.
this is a great one to like just run around with your and to let your kid
No,
watch.
No. This is one of those games. So there are some games with the story and stuff that they do that I realized looking back when I didn't have kids versus when I do now, that it hits you way different. So
Oh,
this
okay.
is one of those games, and if you get a chance to play it, start going through it, and you'll see it'll be like, okay, this I understand. If I played this like in college or something, right, when you're like carefree 20-year-old or something versus when you're overburdened and like 30 something, it's like it's way different. So I'm telling you, it's definitely a game that I think you would actually I think it would resonate quite a bit with you.
No, I really do. I want to play it. Man, the game that I'm currently playing that's not Dragon Ball, obviously, is Witcher. I'm trying to finish Witcher 3. I feel like I talked to so many people that are like hours upon hours in a Witcher 3, but they've never actually got to the end of that game. And I'm like, I want to see the end of this game. I just need to. And then after I've done that, I kind of want to go into Death Stranding if I'm not into Dragon Age at that point. But anyway, so
That's
yeah, Dragon Age is
interesting
like
because
up there.
it does use the same engine as Horizon.
Horizon, right? Decima,
Yep.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's it's a very pretty game.
It's a very good looking game. If you have an like that nice OLED you just got, it is one of the better games you can show it off with. And the definitive or director's cut is 60 FPS, and it looks really good.
Yep. It is the kind of game that you might not like it.
It's very different. I will say that it is very different. Get to the part with the I'm telling you, the hill with low roar. Get to that part.
There's like a moment in the game where I think it clicks with everybody. So it either gets to you or it doesn't. But would very much like to see your opinion on that game too when you eventually get to it. All right, let's move on to this was touched on earlier. Until Dawn. The game is out, PlayStation 5 and PC, but it does appear to have some performance issues on PS5 and PC. And also sales have seemed pretty poor as well. We don't have any sort of early figures to look at, but like people tend to like watch the Steam CCU count and things like that. And so it's just not really doing all that well. And just as a sort of jumping off point too, we have the Until Dawn movie, which just finished filming. And that's also just got a confirmed release date, April 25th, 2025. So that's actually very soon. I thought it was going to be October, which would have made sense for next year, but either way, it's right around the corner. I know actually, so Colin actually is playing the game. He actually put out some words saying that the game's just kind of sloppy and he actually prefers the original. I'm not sure if, so nobody else here has played the game, right? Or at least not a ton of it.
Maybe I'll check out the movie.
My copy is still sealed. So wait, are you saying that you've not played the game ever?
No, I platinumed it on PlayStation 4.
Okay, I was about to say.
No, I didn't play the remake. Although I don't want to say an advocate, but like I can see why this game, why they want to revisit it, because it's one of those things where like, they funded it back in the day. It was supposed to be on PlayStation 3. This game kind of had a really slippery like development cycle. Eventually came out on PS4, did way better than they thought. But then Supermassive, went in bed with a different publisher, and then the Dark Pictures Anthology. So Sony kind of missed out on that, which became this sort of bigger genre, which are these horror, choose your own sort of ending and path kind of games. So I feel like they've always wanted to do more of this game. And so doing Until Dawn as a remake, also, I mean, they got rid of the fixed camera points, and there's a new musical score, which I guess is not as good as the original, but I just feel like there was maybe some upside to it. And because the company's like really committed to doing games with PS Productions. So in my view, it kind of lined up, especially because it's Ballistic Moon. It's a brand new studio. This was a big contract for them, and they're former Supermassive staff. So these people worked on the original game.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, in my view, it seemed like it wasn't a bad idea, but it's just interesting to see that the game maybe didn't turn out all that well, especially because like if you want to line these games up with PS Productions, it sounds like the game probably could have benefited from some more time in the oven. So it's a bit, maybe there was a deadline they had to hit, because they had some layoffs too, which they were very open about that. They said like, oh, well, we're trying to weather the storm here, which made it seem like they were maybe didn't have a lot of contracts lined up in between this game and whatever the next thing is, which kind of sucks for Ballistic, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like they probably had a deadline to hit,
I wonder why they would make the game come out presumably, like you're saying early, if the movie still doesn't come out for 7-ish months, 6 months, because
I
you would
think
think like this has got to be they wanted to remaster this so that way you can probably go to the store, or not really the store, but go onto the PlayStation store and you see, oh, there's the PS5 version of the movie I just watched. I'll play the PS5 version now of this thing I just watched and do it myself. So why would they not just wait to coincide it with the movie release? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
it's kind of
it makes
interesting.
it makes sense. I do recall this was Assad Kizilbash, the head of PS Productions. It was some interview. I think it was somewhat recent too, where he said like, it's great when we can line these things up, but considering the businesses are so different, that being TV and film versus games, that it's like really hard to even like try and like line them up. It just seems like this one, maybe you actually did have a decent way to line it up and you chose not to instead. But the other thing too is that like they've, and this was again, I think the same interview, they're not really concerned with like having to line it up. Like as long as the game's there, the game
Mhm.
will still benefit from like the boost once the movie comes
That's
out.
true.
Because there's that this sort of crossover with transmedia. It seems like every single time, assuming like the TV show or film's good, every single time these games see a huge bump. So as long as they're on the market, and I think that's maybe what was happening here. Sony just said, "Get it out. We don't
Yeah.
care. Who cares if
You think
there's bad sales now?"
it's possible that they have the sequel lined up for announcement next year?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, because we're hearing that sequel is potentially at Firesprite, so
Yeah.
you would think they would. I mean, if that is what that game is, then makes sense.
They got to get this one out. I mean, another thing is if you go to any movies now, you might be sitting there and they could. I've seen video game advertisements played before movies at these different theaters. It wouldn't
True.
shock me if they just said, "Hey, there's an Until Dawn game as well." It's just like an advertisement before the movie runs. So I'm sure there's strategy involved to have the game first before the movie. But they could have released the game in February then if this movie's in April.
Oh yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't know. It seems weird.
Seems a little silly. All right, let's move on to Silent Hill 2 impressions. So, this game reviewed very well. I mean, really, really well. Have not had the chance to play it. John, you've got time in on it. So,
Yeah, I've played almost 10 hours of it now. All right.
that's
Apparently the game
most of the game.
interestingly enough, so I thought this game was like 10 hours. And I'm going through it thinking that because the original one, people blast through that thing in half the time like that I spent here. But some people I started to notice online were like, yeah, it took me 20 hours to play through the Silent Hill 2 game. And I think some of it is wandering around a bit, trying to figure out where to go. But yeah, so they did change the perspective. Obviously, it's not top down anymore; it's over the shoulder for James. All right, so it kind of takes on the Resident Evil remake kind of path where they played around with the perspective. They realized, okay, over the shoulder makes sense for this horror survival style game. And James is pretty clumsy, so it sort of plays into the idea that you are not powerless, but you're usually going to be overwhelmed as just a regular guy as James. But still, you do get some weapons, like you have a melee weapon, you do have guns, like those are things you come across as you go through it. But people were concerned because it's Bloober Team, right? That was the whole thing. And I'll admit, I kind of looked at that too, and I was like, I've seen some of their other stuff like Medium, which I played, and I wasn't a huge fan of. So I did go into this with some lowered expectations, but then the reviews hit. It's like an 87 or something, I think, on Metacritic, somewhere around there. So that surprised me a bit. It got me a little more excited. I get the game, and I'm playing the first couple hours, and they got pretty much the feel of this game. Not only perfect, but I would say better than the PS2 if you align it with the times that it came out, because that was pretty impressive on the PS2. This might be one of the most immersive games I've played in a long time in terms of like the setup and the feel that they have. So they have the fog, all that's fine, right? So you can't really see too far in front of you. And as you walk, you'll eventually see figures and stuff in the distance. But the thing about the game that's really, really got me engrossed in it is the audio design. It is like next level. So Ryan will occasionally talk about the 3D audio with PlayStation. And like, it's kind of cool, I guess, at times. You need the right kind of game to really show it off. Dude, this is it. If you have a decent sound setup, even if you just have the headphones, dude, you got to load this game up. It does so much stuff all the time to kind of put you in that like that spooky mood or that uneasy feeling. So they always have that running like like tone going, like that
Are you
bass constantly going.
are you playing with headphones or
No, I got the surround sound here. I got this thing
okay.
blasted. Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll still do the thing where they'll occasionally whisper behind you. They'll scratch on the walls, and because of the 3D audio and stuff, it actually like at one point I'm walking down and someone just starts beating on the door, and I thought I was like someone was about to kick in my door over here. Like it is serious stuff. Like I
Jeez.
am actually shocked. Yeah, and a lot of I just got out of like there's a hospital that you go through. And it's all dark. You have a flashlight and that's it. So that combined with the sound design, dude, it's legit like creepy as you go through it. So I think this is one of those games that actually plays really well even to like streaming and stuff. Not a lot of jump scares necessarily. Sometimes something will crawl out of underneath a bed or something, but it really plays into kind of the psychological horror of I guess kind of like, so back in the day we had Paranormal Activity when that came out. It wasn't necessarily the jump scares. It was more the idea of we're going to have the sound design and we're going to have stuff really play into the suspense. And then we're going to show you an empty room and you're going to think someone's going to jump at any time. Kind of like that.
The tension build up.
It does play into that quite a bit. And then as you get through it, you realize there are a lot of puzzles that they do, which some are better than others. You can turn the difficulty up on puzzles to where it's incredibly easy to almost non-existent or just very difficult. But then there are a few frustrating moments that I had where you pick up 2 items, you have to combine them, and I didn't realize I had to combine them, and I wasted an hour looking around for something. So yeah, you run into that still. But I it's that sense of you can just look up the combination on the lock online if it gets annoying for you, and you can kind of sequence break it a bit. So all of that is there. The enemy types, they have like the weird 4-legged or 2-leg, 2-arm mannequin looking thing. And it tries to hide a lot, but it's not great at hiding. So you might walk around a corner and it's like just sitting there still against a wall and you're not really sure. So you shoot it with a gun or like hit it and then it just scurries around you and stuff. So it's kind of like the mimics from Prey, sort of, where they'll like turn into furniture or something. You gotta figure out where it is. But I am getting a kick out of this game. Visually, it's the environments are good. The character models are okay. But it isn't like Unreal and everything, I believe. So it looks very good. Reflections are good on all the water and everything looks like it's just grungy and it's awesome. Konami, I'm telling you, has at least figured something out here with Bloober Team, and I wouldn't be shocked if they go, all right, can we do Silent Hill 3 or 4 now? Can we do more in this franchise? Because they got the feel, the visuals, the controls, everything is, I think, top notch. So I feel like if it wasn't for some of the tedious stuff with some of the puzzles you may come across, I think it would have scored higher. So they probably could have cut this thing down 10 or 12 hours and just leaned into that really tight-knit experience, and I think it would have been better for it. But I'm still playing through it. I play for a couple hours at a time and then come back to it. So I'm going to keep rolling with it. I'm curious. I brought up the idea that Kojima and Jeff Keighley are good friends. Yeah. Konami made this game alongside a Bloober Team. I'm curious. I think critics were pretty happy with this game. I think it'll be kind of pushed out because there are just too many games right now that are going to be good. Like I think Dragon Age is going to be very good. I wouldn't be shocked if that scored in the 90s, for example. I think it's going to be the case of it was good. It wasn't like excellent. So it's going to be pushed out by some other games. But if it did show up there, I'd be curious if Jeff Keighley would have a problem with it in the Game of the Year category because it's Konami.
Interesting. I mean, you have to have integrity. You have to. So I would think that's a non-starter. Like it's not even up for debate, you know?
I mean, he kind of publicly blasted them on stage one year when he gave Kojima that trophy.
Sure, but if they ship a game that's going to be Game of the Year material, you can't just... I would hope that the man would have integrity. Let's just put it that way.
I think Konami's got this figured out when it comes to taking their IPs and then having other studios make them, and they kind of run quality control and they help out with creative decisions. So after seeing Silent Hill 2, dude, I'm all in on Delta right now. I think that might be it right there. That might be the one that Jeff's like, are you serious? This is a 92. This is going to be in the VGAs now. Somebody do something.
We still have a date for that though, do we?
No,
we're still saying 2024, but I feel like, is it really like
no, it's not coming out
right?
this year. Yeah. It was really funny. People were still holding on to hope with TGS. They're like, it's coming in December. And it's like, oh, Now it's not. But I think first half next year I could see for that one. First half, I think. So I think that'd be make a good March or April release. I feel like for Delta.
Coming back to
That
Silent.
sounds right.
Oh, sorry. Coming back to Silent Hill, though, it's so interesting because that game, at least to me, and anytime I was like streaming anywhere it was being shown, it was not a very good like showcase game to me. Like it did not look like it was going to come out and be in the 80s. And I feel like that was the general vibe around that game until people actually got their hands on it. Am I wrong on thinking that? Because I felt like most people felt like it was like, because you have these Resident Evil remakes that are just so -3, most, which 3 was still anyway, but they're just very well made. And this just did not seem to have that level. And then now apparently it does. So
you're right. Yeah, no, there was a lot of concern going into this game. I think a lot of it comes from like those vocal diehards too. I mean, Silent Hill 2 when it came out, it didn't take the world by storm by any stretch. Over time there's a sort of cult audience that really appreciates what the game was doing at the time. And remember the first trailer, like, yeah, that didn't go over well at all. And
No.
to be honest, I mean, if you look back at the footage, Bloober took that criticism pretty well. Like they completely changed the sort of mysticism of like the initial bathroom sequence where there's a proper shadow casted on James' face, and because there's a certain air to that game, a certain vibe, right? A sort of, as John was pointing at, tension. And like so I haven't played it, but it sounds like they did nail that part of it, which is you go through it and it's nothing, you never feel safe. It's always like a very uneasy thing, and that's what people were worried about. Like this is a team that did Layers of Fear, Medium. What was that other one they did that did not really resonate that well? They just have not had a very good track record with like horror games, so. But I mean, so John, my question is, you think they've got the green light here? They should be taking on more Silent Hill for Bloober in particular?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if they want to, Konami seems to be good with just having Silent Hill being made by other studios right now. I know Silent Hill 2 is like the big one, and maybe that's a little easier for them to do than the original Silent Hill, which probably needs it the most. Yeah. And that might be a little more risky, but the reason, by the way, I don't think it showed very well. And I was noticing this as I was going through it. It's like all the little things kind of come together to make that experience that only really works in, I guess, like prolonged sessions of more than a couple, because they jump around with the trailer, 30 seconds here, 10 seconds there, cut. In this case, though, like when you start it up, they did a thing where there's no HUD. So they eliminate any of like, you don't have what your ammo is right now. You don't have your health meter. It's just, there's nothing on the screen other than the scene you're going through and your character. So it does kind of always try to keep you focused and engaged. And I just don't think that works well in a trailer setting where they're just jumping around. But then you hear the previews and then you see the extended gameplay and it was like, okay, wait a minute. This actually there might be something here. And then you get it in person on the OLED and the audio setup. And it comes together really, really well for that slower paced kind of horror style game. So I think that's probably why it didn't show it as well when they first like gave us a look at it. But I mean, I highly recommend it. If you like the original Silent Hill 2, you'll probably still like this one. But even if you're someone who's never played it before, like I'm not the big Silent Hill guy or anything, but I think it still holds up really well here with the plot and the enemy types with Pyramid Head and stuff. It all works well. So I think it's a good pickup.
Very good. Very good. Let's move on to Sparking Zero, because this game also just came out. This game, it did really well. My God. Like, holy shit.
How many copies?
That's the news, right? Like 3 million in day
3 million,
one?
24 hours.
That's nuts. What's the CCU on that for Steam? That's got to be up there, right?
120 something? 120,
yeah, it peaked around 120,000. And then I haven't checked it today, but I checked it 2 days ago and it was still, it was holding over 100K. I was like, man, I mean, that's impressive for an anime game. That's impressive for a fighting game. It's just honestly impressive in general. You know what I mean?
Like game debut on Steam.
Yeah. So
I'll kick it over to you then. I mean, what's going on with this game? You said 50 hours in on it so far?
Yeah. So, I mean, this game is pretty much, if you like playing Dragon Ball games, this is an easy 10 out of 10 Dragon Ball game. I feel very confident in saying that. Like, it has pretty much everything you would really ever want out of a Dragon Ball game. This is coming from a guy that, for me, when you ask me what is my favorite Dragon Ball Z game, I'm a Budokai head. So like the original Budokai. Budokai 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
And those were more of Tenkaichi, right? They're 2D on a 3D plane, sort of, or not, I think I said Tenkaichi, but Tekken. They're more Tekken style fighting game.
Yeah.
And I loved those. And Tenkaichi, of course, opens up to the arena fighters, we like to call them, because you get to like move all the way around. And so bringing that specific formula back, I think that this game specifically, it's kind of like you mentioned, Ryan, where you just haven't really touched a Dragon Ball game in a long time. I think that for the most part, especially for people that grew up on Dragon Ball Z, on Toonami, and just that sort of original anime coming to the West sort of thing, a lot of people sort of just was like, okay, yeah, there's that new Dragon Ball game. Yeah, there's that new Dragon Ball game. Because we used to get one yearly. We used to get sometimes multiple games every single year that were from the Dragon Ball IP because they just sold so well. And, we went from the Tenkaichi games into Burst Limit, into Raging Blast, into the Xenoverse series. And the Xenoverse series has sort of held the Arena Fighter for Dragon Ball up for basically 8 years at this point. Xenoverse 2 came out in 2016. And so to come back to actual Budokai Tenkaichi, right? Because Sparking is just the original name they had for the Budokai Tenkaichi series just over in Japan. For whatever reason, they thought they needed to change it outside of Japan. I think it was probably for the recognition because of Budokai 1 through 3, and those sold so well. Like, I believe Budokai 3 is still before the modern era, because like Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2 has sold like over 10 million copies combined. Fighters has sold over 10 million copies. So those have done really well. But before that era where things sort of skyrocketed, Budokai 3 was one of the better selling Dragon Ball games. So I guess they thought, okay, we'll change the name so that the Western audience has like this sort of like anchor point to understand what we're selling them. But then it wasn't the same, because it's like an arena fighter and it's on an open plane where you fly around. Anyways, so coming back to that 17 years later and calling it Sparking Zero, which I believe the producer is on record saying that that he wanted to call it Zero because it's sort of a new starting point. Now, whether that means we're in for a new trilogy, we don't know yet. I kind of hope so, because I think DLC is great and adding new characters is great, but I hope that we're able to build on this and add some things, because there are some things that I think this game is missing that I would love to see. Like one of the drawbacks to this game specifically is that it can only be one character versus one character at a time. But with the series,
I noticed that.
Yeah,
okay.
So like with the Xenoverse series, one of the big things that game, I don't know that I can't remember if Raging Blast did it, so any Super Dragon Ball heads, don't come at me for stating this, but it definitely popularized having multiple people out at once, like a 2v2 type setting or something. So I do hope that Sparking Zero, not, the game's a week old, so not that I'm like saying I immediately need more, but I do hope that it is a stepping stone to a sequel at some point, and we're not sitting here for 8 years of the same game just with more DLC, and they can start adding features like 2v2s or 3v3s, etc. So I'd say that is like one of the negatives for this game, but going into this game, this is sort of the ultimate Dragon Ball experience, I think. And that's why there's so many people coming back to it. Going back to my original point, is I think that you just saw all these games coming out. You're like, okay, cool. And then now this one is the one where we're back. It's like we really are back, having a sequel. And no one expected this either, right? Like this game was revealed at Battle Hour in the midst of a Dragon Ball Super card game tournament. They were in the middle
of the Tenkaichi games. Remember that? People were like, "Oh, man, that's what they're doing."
So I had heard rumors that they were going to be doing some sort of either collection, remastered collection, or a remake. And especially this was like years ago. So looking at what they've done with Resident Evil, looking at Silent Hill 2, looking at even the Crash collection and the Spyro collection, sort of they're the same game, but they're just remade from the ground up, so they look modern. That would have honestly done a lot for, I think, a lot of us. Like just getting Budokai Tenkaichi 1 remade up would have been more than enough for me. But to get a true, proper like sequel to Budokai Tenkaichi 3 17 years later, and it like functions and plays. The one negative though on that too is that they offered what they call classic controls in the game. So they have a standard that fits more into what you'd be used to if you did play Xenoverse or any of the more modern like arena fighting games. But then they also offer a classic control scheme so that it feels almost identical to having played Budokai Tenkaichi on PS2, which is really, really cool. But it has created some glitches when you go online. You'll like look at your control scheme to do like one of your special moves. You hold L2 down to look at your special moves. And if you've loaded in to do online against someone that they're on standard control scheme and you're on classic, it glitches out and you can't actually see what your proper like it'll tie both of your, say your key blast moves to the same input. And
That's
so
weird.
it's very, very weird. And so it's like little things like that. But I think that the peaks of this game and what this game is doing outweigh the like lows, So I think that's why you're seeing 3 million copies in a day. That's why you're seeing 100,000 plus concurrent, is because this isn't just another Dragon Ball game. It is the Dragon Ball game. So
yeah, the thing that's really stood out to me that I've been playing it alongside of Silent Hill 2, because it is a game you can just kind of pick up, play for a little bit, and then step away from it. But I went into it thinking about like the story mode or the single player stuff. I know people play it online and they have fun with it. I've never really viewed the Tenkaichi game. Like if I was thinking, oh, competitive fighter, I think of fighters immediately. Like fighters, that's the one. I look at this as, hey, let's just have fun. We'll shoot key blasts at each other and do some crazy looking things on screen. And probably half the time people rage quit, but still, it's a good time all the same. The stories that they have and the what if stuff is at times so interesting to where it actually surprised me with a few of them. So I was like, I'll go through the Goku one. Obviously, we'll start with him. We'll just go through and we'll unlock people as we roll. And then occasionally we'll have you split off. Like, what if you didn't go with Piccolo to fight Raditz? It's like, oh, okay. Well, what if you beat Raditz? What if Goku survived and he didn't go to the other world or something? And it's like, well, then what would have happened if he had to fight Vegeta without that training? And it's interesting because they do still try to come to a resolution for the character that isn't just, he just got killed by Vegeta and that was it. Like they try to like come up with a creative way to still get you to an endpoint. So it's kind of like Final Destination in that regard.
Yeah.
But it is complete GeoCity fan fiction stuff, but I love it. It is awesome. And there was one with Gohan that I legitimately was like, wow, they actually did that with Future Gohan. Okay. All right.
I do think like you're right. There are some that do go to pretty extreme, but I think, and this is me again, as someone who, my job is to literally cover Dragon Ball things essentially daily for the last like 9 years, but I think they could have went a little further. I think like in some cases, and I think they were also held back, especially in Gohan's story specifically. So we know that there's already DLC announced for the game. They literally said there's 3 packs guaranteed, and they also gave the dates. We're getting the superhero DLC pack in Q1 and a Diamond DLC pack in Q1, and then a second Diamond DLC pack in Q2. And we know superhero is inevitably going to be like Beast Gohan, Orange Piccolo, the Gammas, potentially Cell Max. I do wish that superhero is a 2-year-old movie. I wish he could have been base, because I think they could have done a lot more with Gohan's story if he had access to his beast transformation. And the same thing goes for Piccolo's story as well, because Piccolo would have gained his superhero transformation into his awakened state, where he kind of has that sort of like different greenish color, and then of course Orange Piccolo. So it'd been really cool to have seen those be base game. And I think they could have taken their what ifs even further if they had access to those forms specifically. I don't know if they have confirmed or denied whether the fact that when they add characters, there will be potentially new episodes available. I don't think they will go that far.
But them, right? They have like custom ones.
That is the thing. Yeah, the custom battles are really, really cool. I wish, and I know this is like their first sort of iteration of it, of being able to create your own episode of Dragon Ball Z. I do wish that they gave us access to the actual voice lines, because they recorded the voice actors. I believe Sean Schimmel, the English voice actor for Goku, is on record saying he recorded 70 to 80 hours of of actual recordings for this game, just this game alone. There's a lot of versions of him who have to interact, and there's so many cool special interactions, which is also one of the fun things too. Like even on character select, characters can interact with each other, and then when you get in the game, characters can have special interactions between them as well. And it's always interesting to see who will have what with who, you know what I mean? But it'd been really nice if we could have had access in that custom battle to grab those lines and put them in, because that is definitely one of the things that it is neat. And that's one of the small things. That's one of the things I've not got to dive into much, because I was really focused on wanting to beat the entire story, so I wouldn't be spoiled. And surprisingly, the story was longer than I expected, just because there are so many different paths to go on, and you play as 8 different characters, right? So that it's episodic battles. So you play as that character and you go through their sort of storyline through Dragon Ball. And like you were saying, there's multiple paths, especially Goku obviously is the longest. Like Goku is, if you complete everything, like genuinely like a 6-hour experience to do everything on his alone. And that's if you don't get caught up. because on some of these, to get some of these alternate endings, you have to beat the characters. Typically, their main thing is to beat them fast, right? To beat them before a transformation happens, so that way it's not canon anymore. And now this what if happens because you beat them so quickly, and that can sometimes be difficult because the memes going around with Grade 8 Vegeta and like retry lower difficulty. If you lower difficulty, they don't allow you to get the what ifs.
That's what it is. Yeah, so I did the thing where I was like, no, there's not beating me. Nope. I'm gonna figure this out. So I ended up cheesing it basically. I figured out that after a little while, if I just rolled the dice and charged long enough and I just kept throwing ultimates at it, eventually it just died. And that was it. Like I was trying to do all these combos and I was like, what happens if I just back up and just charge and then throw ultimates at it the whole time? And occasionally there were a few runs where it just it couldn't find me for some reason, and it just ate ultra after ultra after ultra, and then it was finally dead. So that's how I beat it.
Are you playing on PC or are you playing on PS5?
PS5.
Dude, I haven't loaded it up. I've loaded up on PC, but I booted it up on my my little ROG here. Which this game running at 30, it just doesn't feel right.
I was gonna say, how does it run on that? It's like 30.
It was glitching out on me. I couldn't, and I was tired when I was doing it. It was stuck in 1080p. I couldn't lower it down to 720. So I was like, whatever. And so running in 1080, it was only doing about 30 to 35 frames, which again, it felt off running.
Yeah, it's not gonna feel great at that.
Yeah. But I've not booted it up like on my actual PC yet. But man, I can't get over how just good this game looks. Like,
yeah, when you hit those specific moves and stuff, and they do zoom ins on the character who's like, obviously they have like a catchphrase, something they're saying from the show, or it looks really good. Then there are times where it looks a little weird too, but then it like flashes over and it's like, whoa, okay, this looks incredible. So they did some pretty cool things with Unreal Engine, and I noticed this with some of these games that are trying to mimic sort of like an anime look. It was like Dragon Quest 11 is very similar in that regard. Again, Akira Toriyama and stuff, right? But in this way, though, I think they have something here with that kind of that real-time processing and visual style they have with UE5 or Unreal Engine and Dragon Ball. It looks very good. Do you notice they do the thing with some of the cutscenes where sometimes it's like it looks like they put a lot of effort and work into it. It's like the episode. Other times it's just like here's a picture, and then you're off to the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, I as someone who obviously just like this is like one of my dream games. There are definitely some nitpicks. Like one of them specifically is like you'll notice if it's not a sparking episode or you know like something where they've like really made sure and it's not pre-rendered, right? Because or it's not just like a .mov or something in there because you can do you can go into first person, which is so cool. But it's cool. It is so weird when you can tell that it probably was a .mov because the quality will degrade so much. It'll be just like a very quick where it'll play a movie that'll zoom out to do the sort of like what people on the internet love to calling like PowerPoint presentation. And you'll notice that it was very clearly a recorded movie that they were playing because the quality goes down so much. It looks like you're like looking at like a 720p video. Like you're playing it in 4K and then all of a sudden it's down in like a 720p. Have you noticed this? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, a little bit. You can see the compression artifacts and stuff on screen.
Yes,
it's like
yeah. It's
display.
so I'm like, why didn't we just have that be in game too? I don't know. Like there's some very interesting choices on that side of things. The other thing too with the what ifs that I do wish, and I'm hoping this is something else they can build on, is I wish that this isn't really spoilers, but most of the side quests or the side story what ifs, they're self-contained. So they don't typically span to the next arc. So you don't get to see like the true ramifications. Like it typically tries to go ahead and wrap up there, and it doesn't. Like let's say a What If and Saiyan Saga doesn't really continue over into like Namek or Cell Saga or anything like that. Like it's very self-contained within that saga. So I would love to see a future game build on it to where you could see like one of the Goku what ifs that has ramifications all the way through to the end. That would be really cool to see. Probably a lot harder to do, but
what if the next Kakarot game has like 12 different endings?
I mean, that would be really cool. I think though that's one of the things too is why this is has the PowerPoint presentation is because we're in such a different age where all these games are coexisting. Like Kakarot literally just got DLC this year, right? Like you just said, it got the PS5 version this year, it got DLC this year. So you have all these ongoing products. So I'm sure someone at Bandai is just like, well, why would we tell the complete story in Budokai Tenkaichi when you can literally just go purchase Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and that's our complete story product? So let's do the what ifs and let's do the random stuff over here. And you guys, you don't have to do everything. Just kind of like touch here and here and here, and like that's fine because we want them to go buy Kakarot if they want to see the entire Dragon Ball Z story in a video game, format. So, yeah, the landscape of games is it's so interesting these days, right?
And I like it. They like their DLC.
Yes, and yeah, right. Which again wasn't a thing when Budokai Tenkaichi 3 came out. That wasn't a thing. You just put the game in, and that's what you had. No patch, no nothing. Just boom, that's the game.
The thing that always stood out to me because I had when Budokai first came out, I remember my friend had it on the PS2. I had a GameCube, and I got it on the GameCube, but it came out like a year later, and they had like the visuals looked a little more. They were like had more shadows to them. It looked a little better. Yeah,
it was like cell. It was more. It wasn't fully Budokai 2 cell shaded, but it was a different aesthetic from that very much so 3D polygon type look from Budokai 1, right?
Yep. So the thing that always stuck out to me were all those redone cutscenes that they did, and it just looked awesome from the show being done in the game. So whenever I see those sparking episodes, it just kind of reminds me of those old days, just being blown away by seeing it redone in like the 3D models and stuff. So it's a good game though. It's a good Dragon Ball game. Very good Dragon Ball game.
Did you get a chance to do the first person mode on one where they were like moving a lot?
No, I do. So the first person one, I noticed that little R3. You had to click R3 to do it.
Very good. Very good. Very on the nose.
Yes, you had to click R3 and then you can look around first person, but I didn't notice that until like the second or third branching one. And it was,
okay.
I don't say which one it was, but Goku was standing there is what I'll say. And then you can look around at people.
The ones where they're actually doing something is where it's definitely like the most fun. Like there's one where you're as Trunks where he is specifically going to like go around and sort of counterattack, but if you don't go to his POV, it is very much staying on the other two characters in that sequence. So if you go to his POV, you actually are watching him run around like pillars and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Really neat.
Or when they're like,
I'll do Trunks next then and check that out.
Charging up like a spirit bomb or something, like he'll actually look up at the bomb and then look down and you'll follow his hands, and they actually will put the hands in and do like actual like bokeh with the hand. I don't know. It's neat. It's really like the first person mode is way more fun when it's actually in action versus just them standing there for sure. But anyway, yeah, it's just a nice touch. But yes, very, 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 very good game. This game's going to go on to break 10 million. There's just probably no world.
Yeah, there's like they already like just the base game has 180 some odd characters in it. There's a ton of content even if you don't play online. But I did notice one of the trophies got to play 100 online matches, which will probably take about 3 hours of me just getting destroyed over and over and get it. So get on that, Ryan.
That's not too bad. One of the online matches.
The online matches probably not the worst so far from my experience. They make you summon Purunga, right? So you have to summon all three of the dragons. But for whatever reason, they gave you missions for Super Shinron Dragon Balls. They give you missions for regular Shinron Dragon Balls. But Purunga is a random drop from doing local battles.
Oh, weird. So you have to sit there with just another controller active and just
well, so you can do it versus CPU though. And so you can kind of quote unquote cheese it by doing a world tournament and doing stage outs because that will end the matches faster. But I did it for about 35 minutes last night just to kind of see like what was I looking at. Again, it's pure RNG. And after 35 minutes, I'd only gotten 3 Shinron Dragon Balls, which of course I already had those because you start with those depending on which version of the game you bought. So I already popped that trophy, but I only got 1 Namekian Dragon Ball in 35 minutes. So I'm like, how long? Like, again, it's RNG. I might load up here later tonight, and for 20 minutes, I might pop 5 of them, but then maybe I don't pop another one for an hour. So like, I'm like, man, is that going to be the trophy that holds me up? Is trying to summon Purunga because they put it RNG on fighting local like CPU fights? Like, what? Because I'm very close. I want to pop this platinum this week. So yeah,
RNG trophies suck ass.
They do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, Ryan, I recommend this one for you. It's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't honestly. It's Nano. It's exactly as you like. This is the kind of game that this is what I would buy into, having been out of DBZ for so long. My last one probably was Tenkaichi 2, if I remember correctly. I never owned 3. But 2, I was big
on the front with the sword.
2 was great.
I mean, yeah, I loved it, dude. Budokai 1 through 3 just hit so goddamn good on PlayStation 2. Then Tenkaichi, then Tenkaichi 2. I'd never got 3, but I mean, I really kind of fell out of them for a long time. But I always appreciated them and liked them, and I would always download them or buy them physically, and
Played
I
on the
really
Wii.
I've really got no time on them at all. None of the new stuff. When when the initial announcement came out about this game, when like the idea was before they called it Sparking Zero, like that was where I'm like, oh, you've got my interest now. We're going back to Budokai, huh? So I was very excited.
This alone, even if you don't care about even the episode battles, but just popping in and just seeing the spectacle, like I think, because that's why I was bringing up the visuals, like just watching the spectacle alone, like I got a buddy that hasn't really played he couldn't vibe with Xenoverse, and he tried playing Kakarot, but he really wasn't into it, and Raging Blast really wasn't for him. So yeah, Budokai Tenkaichi was really, well, Burst Limit. Burst Limit is like such a gem of a Dragon Ball game that had a very unfortunate development timeline, because like it was supposed to go, that's a game that it ends on Cell Saga, and it was very clearly supposed to go to Boo Saga, and that game was very pretty, and it played like Budokai 1 through 3, and it was a very early next gen PS3, and it was actually the first next gen Dragon Ball game on PS3 and 360. And anyway, or maybe that game didn't even get a 360 release, I don't remember. But
those, I mean, that tracks with that generation. A lot of developers had a really tough time moving from 2 to 3. So that tracks.
Yeah. So, but all that to say, he had to get this game because he's just like, I just need to see it, to interact with it, and just see Dragon Ball again. And he's been texting me a ton about just the cool interaction with the characters, because I think that's just so much fun to watch these characters interact, and just, I don't know, there's 182 characters that actually have unique moves, unique abilities. And there are some times where you'll be like, okay, I saw that earlier, like a similar camera movement, but pretty impressed with how many Kamehamehas are in this game. And they still managed to at least do something a little different with each of them. It's just a fun game to look at. It's just, it's a spectacle game. So yeah.
That's great. Well, that's another game I got to put on the list. right next to Metaphor. So now we'll kick it back to you, John. The Metaphor demo, I mean, this game just came out too. Doing very well, reviewed very well. Another game out of the Persona studio that have I don't know, they just seem to hit it again, huh? How'd that demo play out?
I played 2 hours of it, which means I got through the opening credits.
Not a lot of time.
The demo goes on for like 6 or 7 hours. It's a lengthy demo. I'll give him that. And
OJ played it for like 30 hours, didn't he? Just the demo. OJ?
Oh yeah. He put on like hard difficulty and went serious like RPG mode on it. But this, I mean, the game is supposed to be between 80 and 100 hours long. It is basically a Persona, which is weird. I'm talking about this now. Ryan's the Persona guy here. It's basically that. If you like Persona, you're probably gonna like this game, because I will say the menus scream Persona, like everything about it does kind of go, okay, obviously everything this game, but they take the school element out of it, which is good, because I already did high school. I don't need to go back in my video games, so that's fine.
Whoa. John,
I'll do but they got like the war and the fancy stuff going on. I'll do that instead. It's cool. It's like Game of Thrones mixed with Persona.
Let's not say things we're gonna regret. I mean, come on. How gotta date waifus in school? Come on, man.
How's the OST?
I mean, the soundtrack is as ridiculous as you'd expect. The battle theme, everything about it. It's just, it feels like Persona 6, but they called it Metaphor. I'll be real. It is up there. So because of that, the high quality nature of Metaphor and how much time they put into it, I am absolutely I am just compelled to believe that Persona 6 is on some crazy level right now internally, because Metaphor, I mean, this thing is like the highest rated game of the year next to Astrobot. And I'm Atlas is in such a good spot right now. They just seem to be hitting on all cylinders. And I'm telling you, I'm looking at Metaphor. I want to play the game. I just don't know when I'm going to be able to. That's my problem right now. We are in that where I'm having this issue. It's like there's so many games right now.
I feel like I would have to tackle Silent Hill 2 first, just so I can say I got something done. Because if I jump right into Metaphor, I mean, it's going to tie me up for that long.
That's the game for the year.
I'm sure I'd love it. Yeah, I'm sure I'd love it. But then it's like, oh, shit, well, I didn't play Silent Hill 2. I didn't touch Sparking Zero. I'd like to try the Until Dawn remake, but that's obviously pretty low on the total pole. We've got Lego Horizon coming. It's like, well, I'm not going to play that versus some of this other
Celia
stuff.
Said he's going to roll through Metaphor now. They were having like a little party for it or something over the weekend. So she'll probably be able to explain it a bit better. And that's kind of where I am right now, because now I'm like, oh, what, like Dragon Age is coming up. And then, dude, next month is like Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D is showing up.
Yeah.
And like
That
there's
just looks so
Mario and
good.
Luigi happening. Technically Call of Duty's at the end of this month too, so I'll be playing that.
Don't forget Mario Party Jamboree.
But how could I? You know, it's in so many days. It's another Mario Party. That's amazing.
I mean, I love Mario Party, so
I know it's just funny because I'm like, oh yeah, there's another Mario Party. It's just they've blended together for me at this point. But there's so much hitting right now. And by the way, Ease 10 Nordics just is coming out. That's in 10 days. I just downloaded the demo for that.
What is that? I actually don't know what that is.
Oh, it's the E series long running action RPG. We had recently, people really liked Ease 8. But then Ease 9 was pretty good, and now Ease 10. But if you look it up, it's kind of like this anime-inspired, anime-looking action RPG. That is it's a classic. It's been around forever, the franchise, but it recently I think started to get a little more mainstream now. But Ease 10, another good game that's probably like 40-50 hours long. It's like it's starting to, the gaming season's really getting moving now, and it's not slowing down. And
Not to divert too much here. I am curious. I guess I can kind of tell where y'all are going with that. But so does an 80-hour game, does that turn you off then from it?
it only turns me off in that that sounds amazing to me, but how the fuck am I going to play that?
Yeah.
when I hear 80-hour game, I go, okay, that's the game I'm going to play alongside of a number of other games. So like what I'll end up doing is bouncing around between games, and I'll try to line them up to where one is more story based, and like Sparking Zero, I can jump into, do a few matches, jump out of, no problem. But if I'm trying to do like, honestly, Silent Hill 2 would be kind of difficult because that is such an immersive game next to Metaphor. Or if I try to do Dragon Age and Metaphor, that's going to be tough because I feel like the stories are going to kind of not blended together, but they'll be like, I'll start to think events from one were in the other. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's the thing. I have to pick and choose what games I'm playing next to each other. So Metaphor, 80 hours. I'd have to approach that like I did with Final Fantasy Rebirth, where I basically just played that, and that was like an 80-some hour game for me to get done.
Yeah, I just kind of like
habit.
pass. I don't know. I just kind of like pass games like that. I just can't. It's just so much of a commitment, man.
You know what's made it a bit easier is that Portal. I will say that.
So nice, dude. It is.
Yeah, like Metaphor might be a game I play when like football's on over the weekend or something.
That's one way to probably do it.
That might be the move. Yeah. But it's a slower game, technically turn-based RPG, so it's easier on the Portal.
All I know is 80-hour games. I love them, but I got to lock in on them. And if I lock in on them, I just like the channel suffers. I don't get uploads out.
Oh Jesus! You got to play some bad PS3 games instead.
That's the problem. It's the actual, like, I'm playing games. It sounds like I don't play any modern games. I'm playing games.
That Metaphor, bring in Rogue Warrior. We're not dealing with Metaphor.
The amount of like PlayStation 3 games I've finished for like videos, I'm playing games, just nothing's new, unfortunately. So, all right, let's move on to this. It's pretty, well, it's official news. It's more Xbox news, but it's got a PlayStation lean, of course. 343 rebranding. So during the Halo World Championships, Microsoft made some big announcements for 343 Industries, the studio behind Halo. It's now being renamed to Halo Studios, and all the future entries in the franchise are moving over to Unreal Engine 5, which was rumored earlier in the year. And this was also one of those rumors that relates to a possible PlayStation 5 release, where a remake for Halo Combat Evolved was at some point allegedly being considered for PlayStation 5. So the running theory here is that moving over to an established engine like UE5 will put the franchise in a position that will better facilitate multi-platform development. Not like that was impossible beforehand, but rather moving over to UE5 might be a better scenario for the studio. Instead of getting their existing engine and tools up and running on a new console that the studio historically has not worked with. So, John, I know you're a big Halo guy, right? So it's like, I'm sure you remember this rumor, and this kind of ties into what Microsoft's been doing as of late, which is shipping on competitor platforms. And this would be the one thing where we've seen a handful of games so far. Indiana Jones now confirmed for PS5, but everything up to this point has still kind of been in this sort of ambiguous sort of area of like, okay, it's not, we haven't had like a proper like Xbox IP hit PlayStation. This sort of, you're sort of big three, right? Your Gears, Forza, and it doesn't get much bigger than Halo. So yeah, I mean, to maybe see a future where that ends up happening, be a pretty insane thing. But I know with the studio, there's been a little bit of, I mean, it's not entirely clear with the studio's timeline, right? Because the rumor was like 1 or 2 years ago, they were working on, what was that, Infinite 2 or something. Then there were layoffs and what was it? The director left. I mean, so fill us in on that.
A couple years ago,
yeah. Fill us in on that.
So she did leave a couple years ago, and they actually had 3 different people take over because her position was, honestly, so much stuff was happening, because they also attempted stuff outside of games, which is very unfortunate because it gave us the TV series that did its best to try to kill the series. But either way, the what happened was Pierre Hintze is actually in charge of a lot of the stuff now, and he's credited for taking Master Chief Collection and actually fixing it and just putting it in a better place. So they have good leadership there. They did lose most of 343. Like 343 saw incredible amounts of turnover. So they are just like completely different now. And I think that's one of the reasons they said, we're Halo Studios. We're not even really 343 anymore. So new leadership, about honestly 70% of staff has changed, and they're hiring again now. So they've been working on the next Halo game. I heard they were working on it even a couple of years ago, when it became so obvious that Slipspace was a problem. The engine they were using, which is a fork of Blam, which technically Destiny 2 runs a fork of Blam. It's their Tiger engine, and they need what, 1,000 people? Isn't that how many people working on Destiny 2? Something crazy at Bungie, right?
It's a lot.
So think about how many people it takes to make that engine work with a live service twist. And you kind of see why Halo Infinite struggled as bad as it did. It could not get content out. So why not go with the engine that is like completely built and updated to work with Fortnite, which is the live service game. So in that regard, I understand. I'm gonna try to get more info out of Nate, because I think he knows more than he's letting on. But my belief is that they have multiple projects in the works. They showed that glimpse of Master Chief in UE and Unreal Engine, and people are like all kinds of like, of course they're judging it, criticism and stuff with it. That is just such an early concept still, and then animation for it, that I wouldn't read too much into it. But I think what we're going to see is a remake of the original Halo Combat Evolved. And if there was one game I had to bet on going to PlayStation, a multi-plat release, it's that. It's like, we're going to remake the original Halo. We're going to put it out. Maybe it's just the campaign. Maybe it's like a small thing. It's like, look, it's not even full price, $30 or $40 or something. Kind of like when we had Call of Duty that had the remaster of the campaign from Modern Warfare 2, I think. And they didn't do the multiplayer. It could be something like that. And then they're going to be working on, obviously, the next big Halo game. I think a reboot would probably do this franchise a lot of good right now.
My line of thinking here is that, I mean, there's so much upside with UE5 too, right? Because it's great for onboarding. This is a engine everybody in the games business probably has worked with in some way, shape, or form. It's great for onboarding with new staff. If they are moving over to a new engine for the next mainline entry, which is now conceivably very far away, you're going to want some stopgap releases. A remake would make a great case for that. So everything seems to be lining up, I think, for, at the very minimum, the remake rumor being true, and that they're going to ship that in, I don't know, let's say a few years or something. It's just the bigger question on this show being PlayStation is that will they actually go ahead and ship the biggest Xbox property known to man on PlayStation? Would you think it would be a day and date thing? Would you think would it be delayed?
If it's multiplayer, it should be day and date, right?
Yeah, it should
you would
be.
Think.
If it's your idea of it just being the single player like experience, then I would probably presume it's closer to what they're doing with Indiana Jones.
Well, Indiana Jones is a fascinating one in that that game was, from my understanding, probably like stuck in a weird place where like the acquisition happened. They were told no PlayStation because they even amended that agreement to be allowed to not ship on PlayStation. Then the CFO stepped in, all that big U-turn happened, and then they were like, okay, you can do PS5 again. And that's really the reason why that game is probably not shipping on PS5 day and date. On the flip side, you have something like Doom, The Dark Ages, where that game on appearance probably was never sort of delayed, or the PS5 version was never pushed back or canceled or anything during the entire acquisition process. So I would safely assume that's kind of what happened between those two games. Here, though, it's just that kind of a toss-up. I'm not sure if the company would be really, committed to doing PlayStation from the very onset. But then again, they're just doing different things now, right? Very different things. We just haven't seen a proper Xbox staple actually ship over yet.
This would be the one that sets the tone, because if Halo goes, Gears is gonna go, Forza will go, anything.
That's what I'm saying. This is the one, right?
Yeah, it kind of is, and that's the thing where it's like, you make that move and that's it. You got to be really sure with your Microsoft on that one. That said, I actually wouldn't mind it going to PlayStation, because it's a lot of probably an easy path to Onyx. I'll be real.
What?
the ranking for Halo.
Oh,
I'll invite you guys in the party and we'll get Onyx. Don't worry.
Stomp people out.
I mean, look, they got to deal with these dual analog sticks in first-person shooters. It's not my fault, okay?
I'll tell you,
it would asymmetric. Come on, it's offset, man. It's gotta be offset for shooters.
Whoa! Get this garbage out of here, John.
I thought we were talking about Halo. Imagine Halo with asymmetric sticks.
We're talking about the DualShock symmetrical. Oh god, it would be very strange. I'll tell you this. I mean, I've never been one to dwell on the whole like, oh, it's so different nowadays. We got PlayStation games on Nintendo and Xbox. Yeah, like the industry's changing. This one, I'll admit, it'll be very weird to see that happen. Yeah. You're telling me I can get a Halo game physically on PlayStation. You're also telling me that it might be better on PlayStation because it would probably have a PS5 Pro enhancement.
Oh yeah, what of the Pro?
And you're telling me I could get trophies.
Oh gosh, you want some trophies? Let me tell you.
I know, because listen, I know.
What's wrong with that thing?
I would play that game on a separate account. I don't want that shit touching my main profile. I would never platinum it. I would never platinum it.
It's gonna make your account look disgusting. Is that what you're saying? You're gonna look at that. It's gonna be like 50 out of 112 trophies or something. Is all you have?
It's just, dude. There's too many trophies. I can't do it, man. I'd say give me anxiety. How am I gonna sleep at night? Come on.
I'll tell you how many achievements this thing has right now.
Wait, so what is your game completion percentage then?
Oh, PSN profiles, I think it's at like 88% or something.
Oh my god. Okay.
But like here's the thing. Like,
he has a separate one that he uses for his trophies, though.
I'll admit this. I'm man enough to admit this. I will play on the other profiles if I'm not gonna platinum it.
Got it. Okay. All right.
It has 144 achievements.
That's insane. That's so many. That is so many. But it's like it's online stuff too. Like online trophies suck. They suck. I'm sorry. Give me single player ones.
They usually are garbage. Yes, I agree. I'm currently sitting. I want to finish this. I want to do a name change on PSN, but I don't want to break some of the trophies I'm sitting on. I have all the online trophies for Killzone 2, and the only thing I have to do to platinum Killzone 2 is I have to beat it on. I think is that game called Veteran. I think they call that. I think it's called Veteran in that game too.
I think it's Elite or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever the hardest difficulty is, I have to beat it on that, and I have to do like some explosive kills, and I can platinum Killzone 2 in 2024. And I just haven't sat down and locked in to do it, but I need to do it. That game is difficult on its hardest difficulty.
It is a fucking pain in the ass.
So especially going back too, right? Because that game controls different. So
you did the Killzone 2 trophy where you have to be like in the top 1 percentile for a week. Did you do it at the time?
Yes.
Respect. I like that. That's some good shit right there.
Yeah, I played the hell out of that game, but like coming back to that game when you haven't, because Killzone it has a very like
it's
certain
heavy.
feeling. Yeah,
very heavy.
Yes, and so coming back to that game when no game really feels like that anymore. Like I loaded into that like the hardest difficulty campaign run that I left off on like 15 years ago or whatever. I was like, man, this is tough. That's why I've not finished it yet. Oh my gosh, though. Anyway, sorry, that was very random, but I want to platinum that game so bad. And that game has multiplayer trophies, and I have them. So
it's a beautiful, beautiful swan song that we had a Halo story, and we somehow found our way into Killzone. So
does this mean that if Halo comes to PlayStation, I can get you to play, Ryan?
I don't know, maybe.
I don't play something other than Sling TV.
I don't.
Whenever I see Ryan on his Xbox, I'm like, what's he doing? Sling TV. What?
My Series X was like a sling machine for a long time. Then I bought an LG C2, I think. It's got.
Is that why you're never online on the Xbox anymore?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I like Halo. I'm not like a super fan or anything. I just it would be a low priority in terms of the kind of games I usually like to play. So I have no idea.
Hop in, man. We'll run it. Look, there's 3 of us here now. We almost have a full party. See one more.
I still got to play Grounded. That came to PlayStation.
You don't need to play that.
Well, I always wanted to play it on Series X. I liked it. It was cool.
I tried it. It was all right.
Well, I like stuff like that sometimes, where it's just I don't know. I like
Sea of Thieves. I thought was funnier. That's just because we crashed into like 12 islands in one run.
Yeah, that looks funny too. It looks funny.
We never slowed down. We just crashed right into it every time. Yeah, if Halo comes over though, I'm telling you, we'll get in a party. It'll be like Christmas where everyone gets their system for the first time. They're trying to figure out how to use it, but we've had it forever. We'll just run through everybody before everyone learns how to play Halo on PlayStation. Then we're good.
You make it seem like it's a first-person shooter. It's just so foreign. It's just so unknown to people.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to like remembering the maps and learning where all the power weapons are and certain game types and stuff. There's a lot of stuff in Infinite currently that if you weren't there at the beginning and kind of been playing it this whole time, it'll take a little bit of time to get up to speed and learn everything. So that's what I mean. Like, there's going to be like a week buffer where if people from the Xbox come over, or if there's crossplay.
I mean, surely there'd be crossplay, right? I just can't imagine you remake Halo 1 and you don't bring the multiplayer over like that.
Yeah, the only thing with that I was thinking about was if they did the multiplayer there, people may just not go to the new one. Then they might just stay with multiplayer with the first one. Like, I don't need that new one.
What if a weird civil war breaks out where the game actually sells more on PlayStation and there's
I bet you will,
but it would, right?
Hold on. And then but when you're in game, player IDs will designate what console you're on. And because there's more PlayStation players, a civil war will break out and the sheer volume of PlayStation players will just mass kill Xbox players.
They should lean into that and do Xbox versus PlayStation on certain weekends.
Oh God. Jesus.
That would be cool, actually. That would be really, really cool. Like, yeah. Dude, Halo would sell so well on PlayStation, man. That sells so many copies on PlayStation. Oh my gosh.
It probably would do well, yeah.
Yeah.
It would. A very weird time. If the game gets a PS5 Pro enhancement, sells more on PlayStation. Come on, that's some wild shit.
Did a Horizon 5 SKU not show up somewhere or something? I could have sworn it did. Or was that just rumors?
Those are rumors. I mean, I feel like Horizon might be another one that is on the table eventually, but that one did not show up. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, it's so different from Gran Turismo that they could probably get on the PlayStation. It would do well. Like, it's a very good racing game. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, Horizon's kind of like that game has MotorStorm vibes. So
yes,
it's very fun.
Very fun game.
It's really good. It's my favorite Xbox exclusive. I don't know, whatever they call it these days.
Xbox
on my PC, but
Xbox first game.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's move on to our. Well, actually, you got some questions for us, John? Anything like that? Anything?
Yeah, we actually had one from. Let me bring this in. We had one from Medallion. Said it's been over a month since Astrobot came out, and personally, I still feel it is my game of the year, even on the last bits of playing Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which I still think is great. It was
okay.
In person. So where are you with that? Is Astrobot still your game of the year?
That's like by default because I haven't gotten to Silent Hill or Metaphor just yet.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean, me and you played a little bit of Helldivers too, so I've got time in on that. I still haven't started Rebirth, so I'm screwed. I can't add anything to this conversation.
Oh, you didn't start Rebirth yet? Oh,
you know what's weird? I have no time for this, but I would like to play the PS5 native integrate version and platinum that, and then do Rebirth. I'd like to have the
I'm
two
starting to feel like I'm a
platinums
very irresponsible adult right now. All
by
these
playing
games I
everything.
played. Yeah, I'm starting to realize this.
Well, what about you,
I'm out
John?
there getting stuff done.
Since you do play everything,
I mean, Astrobot is up there. Rebirth's up there too, though. It is really tough. I mean, I feel like if I had played Metaphor, I might even throw that up there. I just haven't played it, but to me, it is still between Astrobot and Final Fantasy.
it's starting to seem like, and I always kind of thought this would be the case, but I don't think Astrobot's really going to win any. It just seems like between like probably Metaphor and, well, maybe Rebirth. That'd be pretty cool if it was
You know
down
what game's
between
kind of
Rebirth and.
faded into the background a little bit for me is Black Myth Wukong. I spent 40 something hours playing through that game, but I'm kind of like starting
Yeah.
to forget about it here and there when we talk about games. Like, oh yeah, that's right, Black Myth Wukong. That was a game I played through. It was good, but it just hasn't been as memorable maybe as I thought it would be. Like I still remember Rebirth more, and that game came out like the first couple months of the year.
Well, that's the problem with Rebirth, though, is that almost always there's going to be like that uphill battle with recency bias. So
That's true.
I'm not sure if that would really hold compared to like Metaphor, which is now like right next to Astro, at least critically. But I don't know. I feel like Astro probably isn't going to win many because like there's hundreds of publications that are going to do game.
I
of the
feel
year.
like Astro, the thing with Metaphor that might be kind of an issue is there are gonna be a lot of people who just haven't played through it.
Maybe
A
by
long
the
game.
cutoff time.
Astrobot is what 12 hours long, maybe if that.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to play through Astrobot, and I think it just speaks to a wider audience. So that is probably one that more people would look at and be like, oh yeah, obviously Astrobot. That's the one that's my favorite game.
All right. That's all you got, John?
That is it.
All right.
Shout out to Medallion.
Shout out to Medallion. Let's move on to our segment called PSX Gon' Give It To You, where we look at some old school PlayStation topics, maybe a very obscure fact, maybe a key point in history, maybe something that was a little bit weird, maybe a little bit memey. This one I thought was appropriate given we just had Silent Hill 2 come out. I mean, you probably saw this, John, the little nod to the Silent Hill remaster. So when Silent Hill was remastered on PlayStation 3, there was a very weird circumstance where you would get to the Silent Hill Ranch, and the ranch sign had where it says Silent Hill Ranch was written in Comic Sans, the font, the very cartoony, childish, like almost placeholder font.
I mean, like an F in English for using that type font. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and though that remaster was always seen as like just a very poor way to handle those games. The fog effect was kind of butchered. Performance, I think, was pretty rough at the time too.
Yeah.
And then there was just like the weird thing with the Silent Hill font, the Comic Sans font on the Silent Hill Ranch. So Bloober was a little bit cheeky with this because in the remake, there is now this section in the ranch where you can clip through it and you can actually see the old Comic Sans font like sort of tossed to the side, which I thought was pretty funny. Because
you have to go looking for it though. You said you got to clip through the wall.
That's what I saw. I haven't played the game, so I haven't, verified it or myself, but it seems like it's there, and that's what you have to do to actually go see it, which I thought was hilarious because it was such a weird thing back then. Like,
it
why
was
would you?
Super disappointing when that came out in that condition. I do remember people just like, why would they even attempt this thing if this was good? What they're gonna do?
Well, like,
who did that port?
Well, it's like why change the font? Like, why are we changing the font? Like, as far as I know, like the problem with that game was like a lot of incomplete source code. Like they didn't have a lot of access to the game remastering it. So
right,
the running theory is that like maybe there was just a lot of assets they had to completely redo, or you know what I mean. And with text, maybe it was just like a placeholder, but it's just Comic Sans, like, and you shipped it like that too. It looks so silly.
Hijinks Studios.
Hijinks Studios. What else they do? They sound familiar.
They made Vandal Hearts, Flames of Judgment, and the classic Frogger Returns.
That's how I know them. That's crazy. Frogger Returns.
What are you serious? That's the one? Frogger Returns?
Because I remember that came out on PSN and everyone's like, why is this $5 Frogger game so terrible? It had like 6 gold trophies and then that was it too. It's a terrible game.
You know the number of trophies right off the top of your head. Look at that.
Yeah, because this is how I live my life. The Silent Hill Ranch. I don't know. I thought that was funny. You know, it's fun. I was trying to look at like maybe you've got one for us, Nano. I was trying to look at some like DBZ stuff. I can't really remember anything too interesting from like some of the old Budokai games on PS2. Maybe just like a weird anecdote or fact about those games, but I couldn't really think of anything. The only thing
the
that I
fusions.
Well, I was just about to say Budokai 2 had some really cool what if fusions that we didn't see return, but like, or I want to say it was Budokai 2 where Cell could absorb, he goes to absorb, I believe, 18, and instead he accidentally absorbs Krillin. And so you get this Cell Jr. looking character that's actually, it has like a Krillin type color scheme though. And like, it's just cool stuff like that, like random little what if fusions in that game that did not return after Budokai 2. They didn't come back for Budokai 3.
What always kind of bothered me is that when the remaster came out on PlayStation 3, they just straight up skipped 2. I'm like, oh, I like the top-down board. Like that did not bother me at all.
I liked 2 a lot. Yeah, 2 is okay. Another fun fact about the Budokai games was that the composer apparently plagiarized. And so if you played the HD remakes for them and you were like, wait, the OST is different from what I remember from my childhood, that's because it is, because the original composer of Budokai, I believe it actually was 1 through 3, especially in Budokai 3 specifically, actually plagiarized all the songs. They were popular songs that he...
All of them?
Pretty much. Yeah, there's some YouTube videos you can find where they'll compare the Budokai 3 track and they'll compare it to the like the real world track that he was very clearly like plagiarizing, and it's uncannily close. So they they had to change the OST on those games. So there you go. There's another one.
Wow. Well, yeah, I absolutely did not know that.
Which is unfortunate because the OST for Budokai 3 is like incredibly iconic and has some like very notable Dragon Ball gaming like tracks that you would probably recognize almost immediately, that were not there for the remake because they couldn't use them. He got fired.
No shit. Well, I didn't know that at all. Yeah, the music's very memorable, and now you're telling me it was all.
And that's why it was so great, because it had tunes of very popular like songs over the years. Like, yeah, that's why.
Basically
that's
stolen.
So good.
Jesus,
that ruined your childhood right there.
Damn. Well, that's all I got for you, John.
All right, that's a good way to end it. Just outright theft. Thanks everyone for joining us. Click R3 episode 9. Nano, thank you for joining us. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you, especially obviously for any Dragon Ball content, them tuning in here for Sparking Zero? A lot of that going on over there.
Yeah, no, it's just at I put Nano because that's just usually what I go by, but it's at Nanogenics pretty much everywhere. So
we have it down in the description if you're on. Oh yeah. Thanks for joining us.
It's great.
It was a blast. And we have him, if you're watching on YouTube, it's down in the description. Otherwise, though, if you're listening on any other platform, Spotify, Apple Music, anything, it is Nanogenics over on YouTube. So check him out. Let's get a big thank you there. Ryan, it was a good episode.
That was very good. It was a stern conversation. We touched a lot of important topics.
Serious business. Yes. Thank you. Thanks. Well, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Do it all over again. What would that put us at? Would that be almost
probably late October?
Almost Dragon Age time. Almost. But, that's something. We might have reviews by then. I'm curious how that one works out. So we'll see. But thanks everyone for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll see you guys then.